Chapter 401. Li Duobao sobbed for a while and said intermittently, Xiao Dai is in the ward now, begging for my mother's forgiveness. He even brought out my brother, Xian, to plead for mercy for him. My mother and I have decided to forgive him, but I'm very uneasy. I'm really afraid that he'll hurt my mother again when he's drunk. Yesterday, she saw with her own eyes that Xiao Dai had beaten her mother with a beer bottle. He even wanted to humiliate her and say those words to her. At that time, she was really terrified. Bailey Yun's expression changed slightly. He put his arm around her shoulder and whispered, Do your mother and brother know that you were bullied by Xiao Dai? She shook her head and choked. I've been hiding it from them. Bailey Yun frowned. Why didn't you tell them? I don't know how to tell them about this. Also, what if he's really just drunk and confused? Bai Liyun's eyes moved slightly. He looked thoughtfully at the closed door of the ward, patted her shoulder, and said, Duobao, don't worry. Leave this matter to me. Li Duobao looked at him in confusion. How do you want to deal with it? He curled his lips and said slowly, Follow your mother and Xian's opinions first. Trust Xiao Dai again. If you miss your mother, bring her to your little house and don't go home again. As for Xiao Dai, I'll send someone to monitor him. If he really has bad intentions, he'll show his tail one day. Li Duobao hesitated. Isn't that not good? If I bring my mother out, she'll definitely think that I have something against Xiao Dai. Little fool, this matter can be handled flexibly. You can choose to visit her when Xiao Dai isn't at home. He stared deeply into her eyes and said slowly, Duobao, I don't want you to get hurt. Promise me that you won't take any risks at any time. She nodded heavily. Okay, I got it. Good girl. He smiled and rubbed her hair. The door to the ward suddenly opened, and Xiao Dai walked out with red eyes. He gently closed the door and walked to Li Duobao. He said uneasily, Duobao, thank you for not telling your mother about how I hurt you. Thank you for forgiving me. Li Duobao turned her head and didn't look at him. She wanted to act cold, but she couldn't. She bit her lips and said, I hid that matter for the sake of my mother and Xian. You'd better remember your promise, stop drinking, and treat my mother well. Otherwise, I won't let you off. Okay, I know. I won't drink anymore. I won't do anything to hurt your mother and you. I promise. Xiao Dai quickly raised his palm and swore. Li Duobao ignored him and tugged at Bailey Yun's arm. Ah Yun, let's go in and see Mom. All right. Bai Liyun wrapped his arm around her waist. He didn't even look at Xiao Dai as he walked past him. Wang Xia said that she was fine and insisted on being discharged from the hospital that day. Bailey Yun drove them home. Xiao Dai had been taking care of her and asking about her well-being. He even went to the market to buy fresh fish to make soup for her. Li Duobao saw this and gradually believed that he was truly repentant. Bailey Yun didn't let his guard down. He specially asked Bailey Han to lend him the Dragon Gang for a period of time. He sent people to follow and monitor Xiao Dai to prevent him from hurting Wang Xia and Duobao again. Besides celebrating Duobao's birthday, Bailey Yun also had an important purpose for returning to the country. In the car, Li Duobao looked at the unfamiliar scenery outside the window and asked curiously, Where are you taking me? He turned to look at her and smiled. Although it's not very formal, I've already visited your mother, so this time I'm taking you to visit my mother. No way, why didn't you say so earlier? Li Duobao quickly took out a makeup mirror from her handbag and checked her makeup and outfit. Is it okay for me to dress like this? What does Auntie like? What gifts should we bring? Also, what kind of girl does she like? Will she think I'm not beautiful enough? Bailey Yun was amused by her repeated questions and laughed. Duobao, why are you so nervous? Although my mother is a bit long-winded, she definitely won't object to the girl I like. Don't worry. Really? Then what gifts should we bring? I'm ready. You don't have to worry. He smiled comfortingly. You just have to be yourself. My mother will definitely like you. Li Duobao muttered softly, but I'm still worried. This was her first time in a relationship and her first time visiting her boyfriend's mother. Of course, she was worried that she wouldn't be liked. Don't worry, I'll take care of everything. Bailey Yun rubbed her hair and smiled dotingly. Lu Xiaoxiao lived in the villa area in the north of the city. This was the villa that Bailey Xiong had bought for her. In the past, Bailey Xiong would stay with her for 2 days every month, but after this year's spring festival, Bailey Xiong had never visited again. Before Bailey Yun returned to the country, he had already mentioned to Lu Xiaoxiao that he would bring his girlfriend to visit. So early in the morning, she got the servants to start preparing and tidying up the villa. She also changed into her favorite clothes, pushed away all the card games and dinner parties, and sat at home to wait. The red sports car slowly drove into the front yard. Bailey Yun opened the car door and got out of the car while holding Li Duobao's hand. His other hand was holding a large bouquet of perfumed lilies. 2 servants ran to the door with smiles on their faces. Young master, you're back. Madam has been waiting for you for a long time. Bailey Yun smiled and nodded. Mother Wu, motherly, this is Li Duobao, my girlfriend. The 2 servants quickly bowed and greeted. Hello, Miss Li. Li Duobao smiled shyly. Hello. Young master, Miss Li, please come in. Madam has been waiting for you in the living room for a long time. Bailey Yun held Li Duobao's hand and followed the servants into the living room. On the sofa sat a beautiful lady. She wore a dark red cheongsam and a white shawl. Her facial features were exquisite, and her skin was fair. There were no traces of age on her. Her pair of noble phoenix eyes were slightly raised, and her every frown and smile was filled with charm. Li Duobao finally understood where Bailey Yun's beauty came from. Mom, this is Duobao, my girlfriend. Duobao, this is my mom. Bailey Yun stretched out his arm elegantly and introduced them to each other with a smile. Li Duobao bowed graciously and smiled sweetly. Hello, Auntie. Lu Xiaoxiao's lips curled into a smile as she sized up Li Duobao without batting an eyelid. She slowly nodded her head. Hello, Miss Li, don't just stand there. Please take a seat. Mother Wu, serve tea. Thank you. Li Duobao pursed her lips and smiled. She sat opposite Bailey Yun. Bailey Yun placed the perfume lily in front of Lu Xiaoxiao. Mom, this is for you. Do you like it? Lu Xiaoxiao was stunned. She smiled brightly and said, I like it. I haven't received flowers for many years. This was the first time her son had sent her flowers. It was also the first time he had spoken to her in such a pleasant manner. And this, Bailey Yun took out a small red velvet box from his pocket. This is for you. Open it and take a look. Miss Li, why are you so polite? The smile on Lu Xiaoxiao's face widened. She took the box and opened it. Her eyes were immediately filled with amazement. This is too beautiful. Inside the box was a butterfly-shaped diamond brooch. She didn't know what mechanism it was, but after she opened the box, the butterfly's wings actually fluttered, and the diamonds on it reflected a bright light under the sun. Miss Li, you're too polite. How can I accept such an expensive gift? Lu Xiaoxiao was used to seeing jewelry. She knew that this brooch was expensive. Her charming phoenix eyes were full of smiles. Although she refused, she was very happy in her heart. Li Duobao glanced at the brooch and then at Bailey Yun, who was smiling. She couldn't help but say, actually, that brooch isn't mine. Bailey Yun interrupted her and said with a smile, Mom, Duo Bao heard me mention that you like butterflies, so she specially chose this butterfly brooch for you. This is her kindness. You don't have to be polite. Li Duobao's lips moved. She wanted to say something, but Bailey Yun secretly held her hand. I see. Duo Bao, you're really considerate. Since that's the case, I'll accept it. Lu Xiaoxiao naturally changed the way she addressed Li Duobao. She smiled from ear to ear and seemed to be very satisfied with her. At first, Li Duobao was still a little uneasy. She was a little restrained when facing Lu Xiaoxiao. However, Lu Xiaoxiao was very good at livening up the atmosphere. She talked about Bailey Yun's childhood and aroused Li Duobao's curiosity. The two of them sat side by side and looked at his childhood photos, laughing happily from time to time. The corners of Bailey Yun's lips curled up. He went behind them and pointed at the little baby in the picture in a flowery dress. He asked in surprise, "Mom, who is this little girl?" Lu Xiaoxiao and Li Duobao burst into laughter at the same time. Lu Xiaoxiao laughed until tears were about to flow out of her eyes. She pointed at the little baby and said, "Duobao, look. Aw, Yun doesn't remember what happened when he was young at all." That's right. He didn't even recognize that the little girl in the dress is himself. Duobao laughed softly on Lu Xiaoxiao's arm. Bailey Yun was speechless. He took the photo album from their hands and said in disbelief, "This is me." Lu Xiaoxiao and Li Duobao nodded in unison. "It's you." Lu Xiaoxiao said, "When you were young, you looked like a little girl. You were tender and tender, so I dressed you up as a girl. After I carried you out, no one recognized that you were a boy." She laughed as she spoke, as if she was very proud of her actions. The corner of Bailey Yun's mouth twitched. This kind of photo must be destroyed. He didn't want that kind of embarrassing photo to be left in the world. Come and see, Hongcha 866. Chapter 402. Don't, I think it's very cute and interesting. Auntie, can you give this photo to me? Li Duobao blinked his big watery eyes and asked pitifully. Of course you can. Duobao, take this photo. If Ah Yun bullies you in the future, use this photo to threaten him. Lu Xiaoxiao generously took out the photo from the album and handed it over to Li Duobao. Li Duobao chuckled, "Auntie, you're right. I will definitely keep it well." Hey, the two of you are teaming up to bully me now. Why is my life so miserable? Bai Li Yun purposely acted as if he was holding his heart. His face even revealed a heartbroken expression. Unfortunately, his smiling eyes betrayed his current mood. It's useless to act cute and spoiled. I will definitely keep it well. Li Duobao naughtily wrinkled his nose at him, hugged the photo and kissed it. Then, he put it into his handbag like a treasure. Duobao, you're too heartless. I'm your boyfriend, can't you let me have my way? Bailey Yun reached out and pressed his head. Lu Xiaoxiao watched them tease each other, and her eyes were filled with smiles. After lunch, Bailey Yun accompanied Li Duobao for a stroll in the garden. Lu Xiaoxiao sent a servant to call him to the study room. Bai Li Yun walked into the study and saw Lu Xiaoxiao standing in front of the floor-to-ceiling window. From this angle, he could see the situation in the garden. He walked to her side and looked out. Duobao was squatting on the lawn and playing with the pet dog. The man and the dog were playing happily. Lu Xiaoxiao turned to look at him and smiled, "This girl is not bad." Bailey Yun crossed his arms and smiled lazily, "You won't object to us, right?" Lu Xiaoxiao laughed at herself, "Do you care about my opinion? All these years, when have you ever listened to me?" Bailey Yun shrugged casually, "You are my mother. No matter what, I still hope to get your approval." Lu Xiaoxiao's exquisite face revealed a touch of sadness. Ah Yun, are you still unwilling to forgive me? Bailey Yun's lips curled into a faint smile. Mom, let bygones be bygones. Don't mention it again. Mom, there's something I've wanted to tell you for a long time, but I was too embarrassed to say it. As your son, I also hope that you can be happy. Ah Yun. Lu Xiaoxiao was slightly startled. A layer of mist quickly appeared in her phoenix eyes. Her fingertips trembled as they landed on his handsome face. Mom is very happy, very happy. Bailey Yun held her hand on his cheek and said slowly, Mom, leave Bailey Xiong and start your life afresh. Her long eyelashes fluttered, and tears fell from her eyes. Okay. Bailey Yun hugged her and said in a low voice, Mom, your son can support you now. You don't have to live a life of dependence anymore. Mom knows, Mom knows. Lu Xiaoxiao nodded with tears streaming down her face. For the sake of money, she became the third party that everyone despised. She also made her son an inferior illegitimate son. In fact, she understood that her son was cold to her because he didn't want her to continue on that path. However, she had long fallen in love with that man. She fantasized that one day she would enter the house and go from being the third party to being the legal wife. However, Bailey Xiong had already lost interest in her. He hadn't come to see her for more than half a year. It was time for her to cut off all ties with him. After a long while, Lu Xiaoxiao wiped her tears and glanced at Li Duobao, who was still playing with the puppy. She smiled. Ah Yun, you bought that butterfly brooch, right? Bailey Yun raised his eyebrows and said in a light tone, you saw through it. Lu Xiaoxiao looked at him coquettishly. Do you think Mom is blind? I saw Duobao's hesitant look. Bailey Yun touched his nose in embarrassment. Why didn't you expose him in front of everyone? This isn't like you. Lu Xiaoxiao poked his forehead with her finger and scolded jokingly, my son wants to act with Mom. What else can Mom do? Of course, she will continue acting according to your wishes. Bailey Yun's lips curled up and he quickly said, thank you, Mom. Lu Xiaoxiao patted his arm and smiled with relief. Ah Yun, Mom is really happy to see you like this. Duobao is a good girl. Cherish her. Mom wishes you both happiness. Bailey Yun's eyebrows curved. We will. At around 4 in the afternoon, Bailey Yun left with Li Duobao. Lu Xiaoxiao stood at the gate and waved her hand. She watched their car drive away until she couldn't see the shadow of the car anymore. Then, she turned around and returned to the villa. There was a hint of loneliness in her eyes. In the car, Li Duobao pouted. Why did you lie? You bought the brooch for Auntie. Bailey Yun smiled. Originally, I wanted to give you more points in front of my mother. I didn't expect her to know that I bought the brooch. Li Duobao's eyes widened. Then does she hate me? Silly, how is that possible? My mother said that she likes you very much and that you are a good girl. She told me to cherish you. Here, that's a gift from my mother. Open it and take a look. Bailey Yun gestured for her to open the storage box. Inside was a red velvet box. Inside the box was a jade bracelet. It was dark green and as gentle as water. It was obviously not an ordinary item. Li Duobao held the box as if it was a hot potato. She felt very uncomfortable. She went to visit her elders and didn't give them any gifts. Instead, she received such a precious gift. Bailey Yun looked at her and chuckled. My mother said that this was given to her by my grandmother. It is our family's heirloom. She has officially passed it to you. When we have a daughter in the future, you will pass it to our daughter. This was tantamount to admitting her identity. She stroked the jade bracelet. Her heart was filled with joy. Because of his blunt words, she was a little shy. Her delicate face was tinged with a faint blush. Sometimes, we have to go to work during the spring festival, so we can't reunite with our family. Xiaodong's tone was full of admiration. You're so awesome. When I first took a plane, I was scared to death. But you guys flew all over the world. So cool. Li Duobao snickered. Let me tell you a secret. Actually, when I first flew, I was also very scared. I was almost rejected by the airline. The two women gathered together and chatted happily. They did not have the sense of restraint that strangers should have. Instead, they left Bailey Yun hanging at the side. He did not know whether to laugh or cry. After the kindergarten was over, little Wingzi and his siblings walked over leisurely. Second uncle, Xiao Yi and Xiao Guai were very excited to see Bailey Yun. They hugged his legs on each side. Xiao Bao was extremely calm. She calmly called out, "Daddy." Then, she raised her little head and stared at Li Duobao with her big eyes. Li Duobao laughed foolishly and waved his hand in greeting. "Xiao Bao, long time no see." Xiao Bao puffed up her cheeks and said calmly, "I can't call you big sister anymore." Li Duobao smiled awkwardly. Yeah, Bailey Yun let go of Xiao Yi and Xiao Guai. He rubbed his son's head and smiled kindly. "Good son, call me Auntie Duobao from now on." Xiao Bao ignored him and continued to stare at Li Duobao. She asked seriously, "Will you abuse me in the future?" TV dramas say that stepmothers abuse their children. Beauty novel, Hongcha 866. Xiao Bao and Xiao Guai were dissatisfied. They pouted and shouted, "Why?" "Because KFC and McDonald's are junk food. It's not good for children to eat too much. Let's go and eat seafood. There are fragrant spicy prawns and spicy crabs. There's also delicious grilled fish. Oh, there's also delicious Crucian carp soup. Whoever wants to go, quickly raise your hand and sign up." Me. The three of them raised their hands in unison. "Okay, get in the car and fasten your seatbelts." Bailey Yun patted their little heads one by one and stuffed them into his sports car. He put his hands in his trouser pockets and grinned at Xiaodong. "Do you want to go together?" Xiaodong waved her hand exaggeratedly. "No, I don't want to disturb your date." "Duobao, goodbye. It was nice to meet you." "Me too." "Goodbye, Xiaodong." Li Duobao smiled and waved her hand. The children lowered the glass window and stuck out their little heads to wave goodbye to their mommy. Li Duobao's personality was cheerful and lively. She was full of childishness, so it was easy for her to get along with the children. They all liked her very much. Xiao Guai even called her little aunt very intimately. Although she was so shy that her face turned red, her heart was happy. After the little guys returned home, they kept praising Li Duobao in front of their elders. Of course, this was Bailey Yun's strategy. He wanted the family to have a good impression of Li Duobao before they met her. What he didn't expect was that Xiaodong also spoke up for Duobao. In front of the old madam and Bailey Xiong, she praised Duobao for being kind and pure. How could the old madam not see through their tricks? She just pretended not to know and said with a smile, "Ah Yun, you didn't disappoint Grandma and got Duobao. Since that's the case, why don't you bring her back and let us meet her?" Bailey Yun smiled calmly. "Grandma, in order for all of you to accept her, I have to do a good job of laying the groundwork." The old madam waved her hand in amusement. "All right, what's the point of laying the groundwork? Find some time and arrange for us to meet Duobao. Since Duobao is willing to accept a worrisome guy like you, we can't wait to burn incense to thank her. Why would we make things difficult for her?" Bailey Yun cried out exaggeratedly, "No way, Grandma. In your heart, am I that unlikable?" The old madam looked him up and down and nodded seriously. You're just too likable. That's why we're worried. Duo Bao can be considered to have gotten rid of evil for the people. Ha ha ha. The three little guys burst into laughter. Xiao Bao repeated that phrase over and over again. Getting rid of evil for the people. Great-grandma, you described it so well. They could joke without restraint and expose their ugliest side without worrying about being despised. They could rely on each other when they were helpless and unite in the face of difficulties. This was family. Ever since the fight for Xiao Bao's custody, Bailey Yun had gradually understood the bond between family members. In the face of his family's jokes, he didn't get angry. Instead, he felt happy because they really treated him as a family. In June, Bailey Yun returned from the United States and arranged for his family to meet Li Duobao. Li Duobao wore a snow-white knee-length silk dress. Her silk-like hair casually draped over her bare shoulders. She looked fresh and natural. On her round cheeks, there was a bright smile. Two cute dimples bloomed on her lips. Her beautiful big eyes were watery and full of spirit. She was prepared this time and specially prepared a gift for everyone. She gave the old madam a handkerchief hand-embroidered in Suzhou, an embroidered shawl for Bai Jinxiu, an inkstone for Bailey Xiong, a gold pen for Bailey Han, a beautiful vase for Xia Dong, and toys for the children. The gifts weren't expensive, but they were all very considerate because she had carefully inquired about their family's preferences from Bailey Yun. For example, the old madam liked to use handkerchiefs, Bailey Xiong liked to use embroidery, and so on. The old madam liked Li Duobao at first sight. She had a pure smile and was polite to people. She didn't talk like those miss, who pretended to be polite. She had a straightforward personality and knew how to be considerate. She was a rare good girl. Bailey Xiong was very optimistic about Li Duobao, but he was a little dissatisfied with her family background. However, he thought about it carefully. Yun turned over a new leaf, and it was also related to this girl. If he insisted on opposing, he might force his son back to his old ways, so he reluctantly agreed. As for Bai Jinxiu, firstly, she wasn't Bailey Yun's biological mother, so she didn't have much right to speak. Secondly, now that her husband had a harmonious relationship with her, she didn't want to cause conflict between husband and wife because of Bailey Yun, so she accepted Li Duobao graciously. When Bailey Han learned that Bailey Yun and Li Duobao were dating, he sent people to investigate Li Duobao. He knew that she was a simple and good girl. He wasn't worried that she would hurt Bailey Yun, but he was a little worried that Bailey Yun would bully her. However, this was between the two of them, so he couldn't be bothered to ask. The most important thing was that another one of his wife's secret admirers had been eliminated. It was really worth celebrating. The old madam said happily, Duobao, when will the parents of our two families get together to discuss your marriage? Li Duobao pursed her lips in embarrassment. Bailey Yun knew that she was thin-skinned, so he quickly said, Grandma, I'm developing my career in the United States now. Our marriage isn't in a hurry. We'll talk about it when I return to China. The old madam looked at him reproachfully. It's reasonable for our two families to meet. Otherwise, Duobao's parents will think that our family doesn't know how to be polite. Li Duobao smiled and said, Sure, Grandma. My mother heard Yun mention you before. She said that she admired you very much and wanted to meet you. The old madam asked curiously, Yun mentioned me in front of your mother. What did she say about me? She didn't scold me, did she? Li Duobao's eyes curved. How could that be? Yun mentioned that you used to go to the battlefield with Grandpa. My mother said that you're the modern Mu Guiying, and she especially admires you. The old madam teased, Oh, Duobao, I didn't know that your little mouth was so good at praising people. Grandma's tail is wagging from your praise. Li Duobao blinked mischievously. I didn't praise you. My mother praised you. The old madam laughed heartily, and the atmosphere at the dinner table was warm and warm. Bailey Yun picked up Li Duobao's favorite dish. Suddenly, his phone rang. He glanced at the caller ID and saw that it was Ah Bao. He smiled and said to everyone, "I'm going to take a call." Then, he quickly walked out of the private room. "Ah Bao, what's the matter?" "Second young master, Ahu, and I just saw Zhao Dai walking into a hotel with a woman in his arms." Bailey Yun's gaze turned cold. "Zhao Dai, you're finally showing your foxtail." His lips curled into a cold smile, and he said in a deep voice, "Ah Bao, take a photo of them and find out who that woman is." "Okay, I understand." Bailey Yun returned from the phone call. His expression didn't change as he chuckled and talked about interesting things to adjust the atmosphere at the table. After dinner, everyone gathered and chatted for a while before dispersing. Come and see, Hongcha 866. Chapter 404. Li Duobao flipped through the photos in her hands. Every time she looked at one, her heart ached. That man, how could he treat her mother like this? How could he be so cruel to her? After looking at the last photo, her tears fell uncontrollably. She bit her lips tightly, and the knuckles of her fingers that were holding the photo turned slightly white. "Baby, don't be sad. It's a good thing to see that bastard's true colors earlier." Bailey Yun knelt on one knee in front of her and used a tissue to gently wipe the tears on her face. She nodded with tears in her eyes. Her heart was still in pain. She felt bad for her mother. Why was her mother's life so bitter? Her first husband had died early, and her second husband had cheated on her. The next day, Zhao Dai had to discuss business with someone and was not at home. Li Duobao took the photo home and planned to explain it to her mother. Bailey Yun was worried that Zhao Dai's sudden return would hurt the mother and daughter, so he suggested to accompany her. She felt that it was not appropriate, and it would also embarrass her mother, so he could only change his mind and let Ah Bao and Ahu monitor them downstairs. Once Zhao Dai returned home and had a conflict with the mother and daughter, they would rush up to protect them. Wang Xia saw that Li Duobao had returned and was very happy. She immediately asked her about her meeting with Bailey Yun's family last night. Li Duobao smiled, "It's pretty good. They are all very supportive of us. Grandma even said that she wants to meet you." That's good, that's good." Wang Xia's face was full of smiles. She had been worried that Bailey's family would look down on their small family, but she did not expect them to respect them so much. She could finally relax. Li Duobao looked at her mother's happy expression and touched the photo in her handbag. She did not know how to speak to her. After hesitating for a long time, she said tentatively, "Mom, I think it's quite difficult for two people to be loyal to each other for the rest of their lives after marriage." Wang Xia was shocked and hurriedly asked, "What's wrong? Did Ah Yin do something to let you down?" "No, that's not it. Mom, don't misunderstand. I was just saying it casually." Li Duobao hurriedly shook her head. She really didn't know how to speak. She didn't pull the topic to her stepfather, but instead caused her mother to misunderstand Ah Yun. Wang Xia patted her chest and looked at her reproachfully. "You child, you scared me to death. You suddenly exclaimed about this. I thought something had happened between the two of you." Li Duobao shook his head gloomily. "No." Wang Xia looked at her carefully and frowned. "Bauer, do you have something on your mind? You've been acting strange ever since you entered the room." She was the one who raised her daughter, so she knew her daughter's character better than anyone else. She had always revealed her emotions, and the only thing missing was the words, "I have something on my mind," written all over her face. Li Duobao gritted his teeth and decided to cut the Gordian knot. Finally, he asked tentatively, "Mom, and I'm saying if Uncle Zhao were to find another woman behind your back, what would you do?" Ever since that incident, Li Duobao no longer called Zhao Dai, Dad. Instead, he called him Uncle Zhao. Wang Xiao's body stiffened. She looked into her daughter's eyes, which were clearly surging with uneasiness and nervousness. She understood her daughter. If it wasn't for some news, her daughter wouldn't ask such a question. Wang Xiao's face quickly became ugly, her lips trembled, and she didn't say a word for a long time. She was a person who could share joys and sorrows, and could also resign herself to adversity, but she couldn't tolerate being betrayed by her husband. However, she wasn't alone. She still had Duobao and Xian. Even if she didn't think for herself, she had to think for the children. Mom, Li Duobao saw that she was so sad, and he forgot all about cutting the Gordian knot. He held her arm worriedly and said anxiously, Mom, don't think too much. I was just asking casually. Uncle Zhao didn't do anything to let you down. Wang Xia slowly reached out and stroked her hair. She pulled the corner of her lips sadly. Duobao, you've never been good at lying since you were young. Every time you lie, you subconsciously look to the right. It's okay, Mom can take it. Tell me the truth. The way she forced a smile was like a needle stabbing into Li Duobao's heart. Her nose burned, and she was afraid that her tears would fall. She quickly lowered her head and opened the zipper of her handbag. She took out the photos and slowly handed them to her. The photos were facing up, and the top one was Zhao Dai walking on the street with a woman in his arms. Wang Xia trembled as she picked up the stack of photos and slowly flipped through them. There were only a few photos, but she flipped through them for nearly half an hour. She looked at them over and over again with a sense of self-abuse until Li Duobao couldn't bear to look at them anymore. He held her hand tightly and cried, Mom, don't look at them anymore. Wang Xia thought that she was strong enough, but when she saw her husband being intimate with another woman, she still couldn't control her heartache. Her eyes were so numb that she couldn't shed tears. She was like a puppet, staring blankly into the distance and calmly asking, Who is that woman? How long have they been together? Li Duobao bit his lips and tried his best to control his emotions. It's one of Uncle Zhao's clients. They've been together for 3 years. 3 years, he had actually hidden it from her for 3 years. In these 3 years, every time he got drunk, he would scold her and occasionally hit her. Every time he woke up, he would beg for her forgiveness, and she actually foolishly forgave him. Even if he beat her until her head was bleeding, she wouldn't harden her heart and break up with him. She didn't expect that he had already had a mistress outside. Wang Xiaoguang thought about Zhao Dai crying and begging for her forgiveness and felt disgusted. This time, she really wanted to cut off all ties with him. Her numb gaze slowly turned to Li Duobao and she held her hand. Bauer, if Mom wants to divorce him, what do you think? Li Duobao nodded his head heavily, his eyes filled with certainty. Mom, I support your divorce. Don't worry, I have some savings over the years. I will definitely take good care of you and Xian. Wang Xiao's lips slowly curled up into a smile as she stroked her daughter's hair. Bauer, with your words, Mom is enough. Li Duobao hugged her and said softly, Mom, the earlier we go through the divorce procedures, the earlier we can be free. Yun has already contacted a lawyer. Wang Xia sighed softly, I still don't know if Xian will agree. Furthermore, if I get a divorce, will it affect the Bailey's view of you? Mom, I beg you, please be selfish for once. Don't think about what others think and let yourself live happily, okay? Li Duobao hugged her tightly with heartache. Wang Xia stroked her hair and said softly, okay. However, the worry between her brows did not dissipate. When Zhao Dai returned from outside, he bumped into Li Duobao and Wang Xia. Li Duobao was dragging a suitcase in his hand. When the mother and daughter saw him, they both had indifferent expressions. He did not understand what was going on and chuckled, Xia, Duobao, what are you doing? Why are you carrying a suitcase? Wang Xia felt disgusted when she saw him. She took out a stack of photos and threw them at his face, saying coldly, "Xiao Dai, I know all the good things you've done. Let's get a divorce. From today onwards, I'll move to Duobao's place." The photos scattered on the ground like snowflakes. Xiao Dai and other women's intimate scenes were all exposed in the corridor. He stared at the photos in disbelief and shouted, "Ah Xia, listen to my explanation. This woman is just a client of mine. There's nothing between us, really, Pa." A slap landed on Xiao Dai's face. Wang Xia slowly retracted her hand and looked at him with disdain. "Xiao Dai, if you're a man, you have to be responsible. If you don't even dare to admit what you've done, you'll only make me look down on you even more." Xiao Dai stared at her in a daze, as if he did not expect that the usually gentle woman would actually hit him. Wang Xia disdained to look at him again. She turned to Li Duobao and said, "Bao, let's go." "No, Ah Xia, don't go. I won't agree to a divorce." Xiao Dai seemed to have woken up from a dream. He hurriedly grabbed Wang Xia's arm and pulled her away. "Let go, don't touch me. You're my wife. You can't go anywhere." Wang Xia struggled hard. Li Duobao threw down the suitcase and rushed forward to help. Xiao Dai raised his arm high. Just as it was about to land on Wang Xia's face, two black shadows suddenly flashed in the corridor. They moved quickly behind Xiao Dai and firmly grabbed his arm. With a shoulder throw, Xiao Dai was thrown into the corridor. Wang Xia reflexively protected Li Duobao behind her back. She was still in shock as she watched the two men who suddenly appeared punch and kick Xiao Dai. Xiao Dai screamed miserably and rolled around on the ground. Li Duobao hurriedly ran out from behind his mother and shouted, "Ah Bao, Ahu, stop fighting." Ahu and Ah Bao stopped. They did not even look at the cowering Xiao Dai and turned to look at them. "Are you okay?" Li Duobao shook his head. "I'm fine." "Mom, are you okay?" Wang Xia forced a smile. "I'm fine. Thank you." "You're welcome. Second young master told us to protect the two of you. Let's go downstairs." Ahu quickly walked forward and picked up the suitcase on the ground. Li Duobao held Wang Xia's arm and followed behind them. Wang Xia walked to the elevator and could not help but look back at Xiao Dai, who was groaning on the ground. A look of pity appeared in her eyes. Ah Bao said, "Auntie, don't worry. We didn't hit his vitals. We just wanted to teach him a lesson." Wang Xia smiled awkwardly. Wang Xia had not thought of how to tell Ah Xian about the divorce when he called back. His voice was very urgent. "Mom, are you really going to divorce Dad?" "Ah Xian, did your dad tell you? I really can't live with your dad anymore. Forgive me for being selfish this time. Mom, Dad said that there's really nothing between him and that woman. You misunderstood. Please believe him this time. Mom, I really don't want to become a child of a single-parent family. Mom, I'm begging you." Ah Xian started sobbing on the phone. Ad Hongcha 866. "I don't believe it. You're obviously looking down on Dad. Dad and Mom haven't divorced yet and you're calling Dad by his full name. Do you still have any respect for him?" Li Duobao's fingers that were holding the phone suddenly tightened. Just as she was about to say something, a hand suddenly appeared behind her and snatched her phone away. A figure suddenly appeared beside her. He was tall and straight, and his entire body was emitting a cold aura. It was Bailey Yun. She stared at him in a daze. Seeing him put the phone to his ear, his handsome face was expressionless as he said indifferently, "Zhao Xian, I'm Bailey Yun, your future brother-in-law. I have something to say to you." Ah Xian was obviously still angry. he didn't even have a good expression towards Bailey Yun. He said angrily, "If you have something to say, just say it." Bailey Yun said indifferently, "You're already an adult. Don't be so willful like a child. Before you accuse others, you'd better get to the bottom of the matter. Otherwise, the words that come out of your mouth will be too hurtful." Ah Xian was slightly startled. Yar flew into a rage. "Don't think that you can lecture me just because you're my sister's boyfriend. I know very well what the truth is." Bailey Yun sneered. "Then tell me what the truth is." Ah Xian said angrily, "It's my dad's fault for hitting my mom when he's drunk, but in the past month or so, he's already corrected himself. Why is sis still holding on to him and not letting him go? Why did she purposely create those photos to encourage mom to divorce dad?" Bailey Yun's gaze turned cold. "Is this the so-called truth that Zhao Dai told you?" "That's right, I believe what my dad said." Bailey Yun glanced at Li Duobao, who was biting his lips in grievance, and said in a deep voice, "Since you trust your dad so much, why don't you ask him what else he did besides cheating and drinking violence?" "What do you mean? Don't slander my dad." Ah Xian's furious voice clearly reached Li Duobao's ears. She felt uneasy. She knew what Bailey Yun wanted to say, so she quietly tugged at his sleeve and whispered, "Ah Yun, don't say it." Bailey Yun put his arm around her shoulder, deliberately letting Ah Xian hear their conversation. "Duobao, don't be afraid. We should let Ah Xian know about this matter. Otherwise, he will misunderstand you for the rest of his life. You guys, what are you trying to say? Tell me quickly." Ah Xian could no longer hold back his temper and asked anxiously. Bailey Yun said slowly, "After your father got drunk, not only did he abuse your mother, he also molested your sister. Last time, if I hadn't arrived in time, your sister would have been killed by him." Clang, this sound didn't come from the phone, but Bailey Yun and Li Duobao turned around at the same time and saw Wang Xia standing in the living room with a pale face. Beside her feet, a teacup was broken on the ground. She was like a walking corpse, walking towards them in a daze, muttering, "Duobao, is this true?" At the same time, on the other end of the phone, Xian roared angrily, "I don't believe it, this is slander." Bailey Yun's gaze fell on Wang Xia, his left hand pressed on Li Duobao's shoulder, and said, "Duobao, since mom knows about it now, don't hide it from her anymore." His words reached Ah Xian's ears at the same time. "Duobao, is it true?" Wang Xia looked at Li Duobao blankly, her hands clenched into fists. Li Duobao bit her lips, a layer of light in her eyes, and she nodded slowly. "Why did you hide such a big thing from me?" Wang Xia rushed in front of her and grabbed her arm excitedly. "Mom, at first, I thought stepfather was just drunk. I didn't want to destroy the relationship between you two, and I didn't want to destroy the image of the father in Ah Xian's heart that he respected. Last time, he beat you until your head bled, and he almost. I was really scared. I was worried that if we forgave him, he would hurt us again when he got drunk one day. That's why I had people secretly pay attention to his actions. Mom, I really didn't mean to destroy the relationship between you two. Don't say it, don't say it." Wang Xia's tears fell like rain, and she hugged her tightly in her arms. "Bao, Mom's silly daughter, you should have told Mom earlier. How could Mom blame you? Mom can't wait to feel sorry for you. It's all Mom's fault. Mom didn't find out earlier that Zhao Dai was a beast in human skin. Mom has let you down, it's Mom who has let you down. Mom, don't think like that. I hid it from you because I wanted you to be happy. You've already sacrificed too much for me and Ah Xian, Bao, Mom's silly Bao, Wang Xia hugged her daughter and wailed. This was the first time she cried so sadly in so many years. The mother and daughter hugged each other and cried. Bailey Yun's eyes also shone brightly. He put the phone to his ear and said slowly, "You heard it all, right? Do you still think your sister did something wrong?" It turned out that he had pressed the hands-free button just now. Everything that had happened here, everything that Duo Bao and his mother had said, had been transmitted to Ah Xian's ears without missing a word. Ah Xian was dumbstruck, and his heart ached to the extreme. He had regarded his father as his idol since he was young. He worshipped his father, respected his father, and believed every word he said. He didn't expect that his father would lie to everyone and use him to save this broken marriage. He felt extremely ashamed. He actually said so many hurtful words to his mother and sister. He simply didn't have the face to face them anymore. A regretful sob came from the phone. Bailey Yun's voice softened a lot. "Xian, as a man, you have to be responsible. You have to know how to distinguish right from wrong. When you see things, you can't rely on your eyes and ears. Your sister and your mother are both here. Don't you want to say a few words to them?" Ah Xian was silent for a while, then slowly said, "Thank you, brother-in-law. I want to say a few words to my sister." Bailey Yun nodded and handed the phone to Li Duobao. Li Duobao wiped the tears from the corner of his eyes and pretended to be light. "Xian, it's me." Ah Xian paused, his voice hoarse. "Sis, I'm sorry. I said a lot of nonsense. I'm really sorry. Can you forgive me?" Li Duobao's lips slowly curled up, and he said softly, "Ah Xian, we will always be a family. I have never been angry with you, so how can I forgive you?" "Sis, I'm sorry." The suppressed tears suddenly gushed out, and Ah Xian burst into tears. The phone was handed over to Wang Xia again. Ah Xian's agitated emotions had recovered a lot. He said in a low voice, "Mom, I said today that you are selfish. Please don't take it to heart. In fact, the one who is truly selfish is me. I have never thought of you from your point of view. I'm sorry. I won't object to your divorce with Dad anymore. Mom, Sis is right. You have sacrificed your entire life for us. It's time for you to think about yourself. I also hope that you can be happy." Wang Xia shed tears, but there was a gratified smile on her lips. "Ah Xian, Mom is very happy. You have finally grown up." The grudge between the family was resolved just like that. All that was left was to go through the divorce procedures with Xiao Dai. All of this was thanks to Bailey Yun. Wang Xia valued him more and more. Even Ah Xian, who had never seen him before, was already convinced by him. His marriage with Li Duobao was also considered a sure thing. However, unexpectedly, there was still a test waiting for them ahead. Awesome novel, Songshu 566. Chapter 406. It was late at night. Bailey Yun was half naked with a towel wrapped around his waist. He walked out of the bathroom while wiping his wet hair. He walked to the sofa and picked up his phone to take a look. There were no unchecked messages or missed calls. His heart felt empty. Today was the day Li Duobao's mother divorced that scumbag. She said that she wanted to stay by her mother's side. He wanted to give the mother and daughter a chance to heal alone, so he didn't go to her house to see her. It made him feel uncomfortable for the whole day. He kept feeling that something important was missing. The door lock clicked. Bai Liyun suddenly raised his head and looked over. The door opened and Li Duobao stood at the door wearing an orange dress. She stood straight like a statue and stared at him in a daze as if she was in a daze. "Duobao, what's wrong with you?" Bai Liyun rushed towards her anxiously. Li Duobao's long eyelashes fluttered and she ran into his arms. She leaned her head on his bare chest and said with a choked voice, "Ah Yun, do you really love me? Will you always be loyal to me? Will you lie to me?" Bailey Yun knew that she must have been agitated by her mother's divorce. He wrapped his arms around her waist and hugged her tightly. His smooth chin rubbed against her soft hair and he said softly, Duobao, I love you. I will be loyal to you for the rest of my life. I will never lie to you. Her eyes were sore. Her eyelashes fluttered slightly and tears gushed out. How long is forever? Bailey Yun held her face and stared into her eyes with a solemn expression. He said as if he was making an oath, forever is one day longer than my life. As long as I'm alive, you will be the only woman I love. His gentle but firm voice entered her heart word by word, and the doubts about love that had arisen from her stepfather's betrayal of her mother gradually dissipated. Her tears turned into smiles, and her curved eyebrows were filled with a bright smile. Seeing her smile again, Bailey Yun's lips curled up. He rubbed her hair and said gently, Why didn't you call me before you came? What if you were in danger? Don't do this again. She sniffled and frowned. I know, I just suddenly missed you. The smile on Bailey Yun's face widened. Oh, I like hearing that. He bent down slightly and kissed her cheek, whispering in her ear, Don't go back tonight. His warm breath brushed against her ear, causing her body to tremble slightly. Her cheeks started to burn again. She lowered her eyes guiltily and realized that her hands were pressed against his broad chest. She could clearly feel the texture of his muscles. Under her palms, his heart was beating as fast as hers. She retracted her hands and lowered her head shyly. Biting her lips, she whispered, No, we have to wait until after we get married. His large hand rubbed her hair hard, and a low laughter seemed to come from the depths of his chest, extremely magnetic. Little fool, what are you thinking? What I mean is that it's too late, so don't go back and forth. Just sleep here for the night. Of course, if you can't wait, we can consummate our marriage tonight. You're bullying me. Li Duobao's face turned red. She pouted and lightly punched his chest. He raised his eyebrows and smirked. Why would I bully you? I can't wait to dote on you. It's obvious that some little fool is thinking the wrong way. Li Duobao stomped her feet and covered her face. Stop talking. If you continue, I'm going to ignore you. His voice was full of laughter. All right, let's stop joking. Sleep in the guest room tonight. I definitely won't take the opportunity to harass you. Although they had been dating for a few months, they had only held hands and kissed. They hadn't broken through the last line of defense. Bailey Yun cherished her very much and wanted to save the best for their wedding night. It was mid-August, and the sun was scorching. Li Duobao followed the flight and came to New York again. Because every time she came, Bailey Yun would take her around to play, so she was now more familiar with New York. Just as she came out of the airport, Bailey Yun's assistant, Kelly, was already waiting by the side of the road in his car. She smiled and shook hands with Kelly. Kelly, sorry to trouble you. I have to ask you to send me home again. Kelly teased, It's my honor. If the president didn't have something to do at the last minute, such a good job wouldn't have fallen to me. After Kelly sent Li Duobao to Bailey Yun's apartment, he rushed back to the company to report. Li Duobao packed her luggage and looked at the time. There was still more than an hour to lunch. In the past, she had made a few lunches and sent them to the company to have lunch with Bailey Yun. He was especially happy. This time, she wanted to do it again. As long as she thought about how surprised he would be, she felt sweet in her heart. Li Duobao made a few dishes that he liked and packed them in a lunchbox. She went out and hailed a taxi, heading to his company. There was a fountain in front of the Seagram building. The water sprayed up high and then sprinkled into the clear pool. The bright sunlight reflected on the surface of the water, making it sparkle. Li Duobao was wearing a bohemian-style long dress. Her hair was curled into big waves and draped over her shoulders. She wore brown sunglasses on her face and looked sexy and charming. It was very different from her usual pure image. She wondered if Ah Yun would recognize her when he saw her later. She snickered and her lips curled into a playful arc. She was about to walk to the entrance of the building when she saw Bailey Yun and a beautiful blonde walking out from inside, talking and laughing. She recognized the woman. It was his secretary, Helen. Although she had only seen Helen twice, she had a deep impression of her beauty. Reflexively, she hid behind a big tree next to the fountain. She frowned. She couldn't understand her behavior. Why did she hide? However, it didn't seem right to walk out from behind the big tree. Just as she was letting her imagination run wild, her cell phone in her handbag suddenly rang. She hurriedly took out her cell phone from her handbag. The caller ID showed that it was Ah Yun. She glanced at the two people who were walking to the parking lot and pressed the answer button. Ah Yun. Bao, have you eaten? Bailey Yun's voice came from the phone. Yes, I just ate. What about you? She came out from behind the big tree and watched them walk further and further away. I'm in the office. I ordered takeout. I'll come back early after I finish my business in the afternoon. Gigai is waiting for me at home. His voice was so gentle. She was silent for a moment. Are you in the office now? Yes, what's wrong? Nothing. She paused and said, then hurry up and eat. Don't starve yourself. I'll hang up first. Without waiting for him to answer, she directly hung up the phone. Why did he lie to her? He was clearly outside the company. No, that's not right. He was clearly with his secretary, but he lied to her and said that he was in the office. Why? Was it because he had done something wrong and felt guilty? He had once promised her that he would never lie to her. Now, she began to wonder how much of what he had said to her was true. In the parking lot, Bailey Yun stood in front of his car and stared at the phone in his hand. His secretary, Helen, saw that he wasn't moving and asked with concern, President, what's wrong? Bailey Yun retracted his thoughts and smiled. It's nothing. Let's go. After getting into the car and starting the car, he still felt that something was wrong. Duo Bao didn't seem to be in a good mood. She never hung up on him before. Did something happen? That's not right. Kelly said that when he sent Duo Bao home, she was very happy. Perhaps he was thinking too much. Inside the jewelry store, the decorations were splendid. A handsome man and a beautiful woman sat in front of the wedding ring counter. The woman wore an exquisite diamond ring on her slender finger as she smiled and said something to the man. The man's eyes were full of smiles as he answered a few words. Then, he turned his gaze to Miss at the counter and asked her to take out more styles of diamond rings. The two of them were choosing wedding rings. Li Duo Bao felt as if she had been struck by lightning. She stiffly lay in front of the glass wall of the jewelry store. Her mind was in a mess as she stared at the man and woman chatting and laughing at the banquet. She didn't expect that she would see such a heartbreaking scene when she followed Bailey Yun's car. Tears quickly welled up in her eyes, blurring her vision. Like a puppet, she stiffly turned around and moved her heavy footsteps to avoid the dazzling scene. She didn't even have the courage to rush in and question him. Li Duo Bao returned to the empty villa and sat on the sofa in a daze for more than an hour. Her eyes were so dry that she couldn't cry anymore. She put the clothes she had tidied up a few hours ago back into the suitcase and stuffed all her personal belongings inside. Without leaving a word, she left without looking back. Bailey Yun deliberately got off work early and rushed home to see the little woman he missed dearly. However, when he hurriedly opened the door, it was empty. There was no one there. He quickly ran upstairs and opened the door to her room. There was still no one there. Even her suitcase was gone. Bailey Yun quickly felt uneasy. He dialed her number, and the cold female voice told him that the other party had turned off her phone. Uneasiness and fear were like the hands of the devil, tightly gripping his neck and suffocating him. He tried hard to control his panic and dialed the phone back to the country. "Auntie, did Duobao contact you today?" "Yes, when she just arrived in New York today, she called me to tell me that she was safe." "What's wrong?" Wang Xiao's slightly worried voice came over. "It's nothing. I was just asking." Bailey Yun casually found a reason and quickly hung up the phone. Then, he called her good friend Ren Yuyu. Ren Yuyu said that when Duobao arrived in New York, she sent her a text message to tell her that she was safe. After that, she didn't contact her again. Come and see, Hongcha 866. Chapter 407. Bailey Yun made a round of phone calls, but he didn't manage to find out Li Duobao's whereabouts. He was about to go crazy. He clenched his fist and slammed it on the coffee table. The intense pain made him tremble. A thought suddenly flashed through his mind. Did she return to the Hilton Hotel? She had said before that their company always booked rooms at that hotel for their employees. Bailey Yun was excited. He called the hotel's front desk directly. Miss at the front desk said that the flight attendants of Central South Airlines were indeed staying at their hotel. "Please help me check Miss Li Duobao's room number." "I'm sorry. We keep the guest's room number a secret." No matter how Bailey Yun asked, the other party refused to tell him the room number. The veins on his forehead bulged. In the end, he hung up the phone and drove straight to the hotel. There were so many rooms in the Hilton Hotel. It was impossible for him to search every room. Bailey Yun slammed the car door. He held a loudspeaker in his hand and strode to the hotel's atrium. From here, he could see all the floors. He raised the loudspeaker and stood in the atrium with a cold expression. He slowly looked around and said loudly, "Li Duobao, I know you're here. Come out. I have something to talk to you about." The loudspeaker transmitted his voice in all directions, attracting the attention of many people and the hotel's security personnel. 2 security personnel came forward and stopped him. "Sir, your actions have disturbed our hotel's guests. Please turn off the loudspeaker." Bailey Yun ignored them and continued to speak loudly in Chinese. "Li Duobao, what happened? Why did you leave me? Come out now and explain yourself." More people came out of the hotel rooms and stood on the balcony. They looked down curiously. Some of them were foreigners who didn't know what he was shouting about. Some of them were Chinese and enthusiastically applauded him. "Hey, bro, you're very brave. I support you." Someone shouted, "That girl called Li Duobao, come out quickly. If you don't come out, your boyfriend will be taken away by the security." Sure enough, the 2 security guards grabbed Bailey Yun's arm and seemed to want to drag him away by force. Bailey Yun, on the other hand, did not look embarrassed at all. His cold gaze continued to scan the surroundings, trying to find that little woman in the crowd. However, there was no one there. She was not among these people. "Sir, if you don't stop this behavior, we will forcibly take you out of the hotel." The security guard gave an ultimatum. Bailey Yun ignored them and continued to shout through the loudspeaker, "Li Duobao, I love you. Don't you love me anymore? Are you okay with me being arrested by the police? Li Duobao, answer me." "Pa!" The loudspeaker was snatched away by the security guard and thrown to the ground. The sharp, ear-piercing sound echoed in the empty atrium. "Duobao, your boyfriend is fighting with the security guard." "Oh no, oh no. There are 2 of them, and Bailey Yun is alone. He will definitely suffer." The door of a room was wide open. A beautiful woman was lying on the balcony, watching with great interest. From time to time, she would turn back to report the situation to the people hiding in the room. Li Duobao covered her ears and shook her head in pain. She didn't want to hear it. He was going to marry another woman. Why did he come here and say something to disturb her mood? Oh my God, Duobao, a security guard hid Bailey Yun's face. He is so handsome. Will he be disfigured? Li Duobao's colleague, Zhu Ling, who had been broadcasting live from the balcony for Li Duobao. Zhu Ling's exaggerated scream came again. Oh, this time they hit Bailey Yun's stomach. Bailey Yun is so pitiful. Before she could finish her words, the ostrich with the surname Li and the name Duobao, who was hiding in the room, rushed out of the room like lightning and ran to the elevator. Zhu Ling's lips curled up high. She proudly stared at Bailey Yun, who had beaten the security guard to the ground. She muttered, Bailey Yun, oh Bailey Yun, when you get the beauty back, don't forget my great kindness. Li Duobao rushed into the atrium like a bullet. When she saw the situation in front of her, she quickly stopped and turned around to escape. She was so stupid. She was actually deceived by Zhu Ling. The current situation was not Bailey Yun being beaten up, but he was beating someone else to the ground. But just as she ran a step, her arm was grabbed and she was pulled back to the warm and familiar chest. Bro, you're too awesome. There was a cheer around. He acted as if he didn't hear anything. He only had eyes for her. His arms were tightly wrapped around her back. Because of his excitement, his body was trembling slightly. Even his voice was trembling. Why did you leave? Her eyes were extremely sore. She bit her lips hard and forced herself to hold back her tears. She deliberately armed herself with indifference. Why can't I leave? Do I have to stay and be humiliated by you? Why did you leave without saying goodbye? Why did you turn off your phone? Damn it, do you know how anxious I was? I thought you were kidnapped again. Bailey Yun held her shoulders and roared at her. The fire in his eyes almost burned her to ashes. He was the one who was in the wrong, so why was she the one who was being blamed? She was full of grievances and struggled hard. Let go of me. I don't want you to care. From this moment on, we're breaking up. We're breaking up. Bailey Yun's eyes suddenly tightened, his entire body emitting a cold aura. He stared straight into her eyes, his hands were like iron pincers, pinching her bones to the point of pain. He said word by word, say that again. Tears welled up in her eyes. She shouted desperately, we're breaking up. I said we're breaking up. Li Duobao, I'm giving you one more chance. I order you to take back what you said. Bailey Yun's eyes were dyed with a layer of scarlet because of his anger. His gaze was frighteningly fierce. He looked as if he was going to pounce on her and tear her apart. I won't take back what I said. Let go of me. Don't touch me again. It's dirty. She didn't want him to touch her after touching another woman's hand. It would make her feel disgusted and extremely stupid. However, Bailey Yun was greatly affected by her words. Dirty. Indeed, this was her true thoughts. She used to say that she wouldn't mind his past, but it was all a lie. It was all a lie. She felt that he was dirty from the bottom of her heart. She felt that he wasn't worthy of her. His body stiffened. His face was pale and his lips couldn't stop trembling. He allowed her to push him back fiercely. He staggered a few steps and almost fell to the ground. His vision was a blur and he could only see her figure running away quickly. He was like a big tree that had been attacked by the wind and snow. He no longer had his usual heroic appearance. All that was left was the vicissitudes of life and decadence. He clenched his fists tightly and stared in the direction she disappeared. His shoulders felt as if there was a heavy weight pressing down on them, causing him to suffocate. Sir, please come with us. You are suspected of intentional injury. When Bailey Yun beat up the security guard, the hotel had already called the police. At this moment, the police rushed over and wanted to take him back to the police station. Bailey Yun didn't say a word and silently followed the police. The crowd that had surrounded the balcony to watch the show for a long time let out a hissing sound. Li Duobao ran back to the bathroom in the room in one breath, locked the door, turned on the tap, and cried loudly under the cover of the sound of running water. Zhu Ling crossed her arms and leaned against the wall next to the bathroom. Her brows were deeply furrowed. Sigh, could it be that she had done something wrong? After Bailey Yun was arrested and sent to the police station, his lawyer quickly rushed over. After negotiating with the injured security guard, the security guard was willing to accept the compensation and give up the lawsuit against Bailey Yun. More than half a month had passed. Bailey Yun's originally thin face had become even thinner. His handsome face, which was originally full of smiles, was shrouded by dark clouds. The company's employees didn't dare to provoke him for fear of becoming cannon fodder. The vice president, Jerif, was an American Chinese. He was an alumnus of Bailey Yun and had a good relationship with him in private. On this day, Jerif brought 2 cups of coffee to his office, saying that he wanted to have coffee with him. Jerif sighed. "Ah, Yun, do you know that the employees are very afraid of you recently? It's enough to have a fussy boss like me in the company. If you were to join in, everyone would have no way to survive." Bailey Yun took a sip of coffee and said expressionlessly, "I'll be careful in the future." Jerif leaned closer to him. "In that case, try smiling first." Bailey Yun's stiff lips twitched. Jerif waved his hand helplessly. "Forget it, don't smile. Your smile is even uglier than your gloomy face now." Bailey Yun glanced at him coldly. "If there's nothing else, go back to your office. I have to work." Jerif walked to the office door and stopped in his tracks. After a few seconds of silence, he said without looking back, "Ah Yun, I know why you're in a bad mood. If you really can't bear to part with her, then get her back so that you won't regret it in the future." There was an imperceptible desolation in his voice. Bailey Yun was slightly stunned. He looked down at the black coffee in his hand. It was very bitter, just like his heart during this period. Very bitter. Stepping foot on the land of New York again, Li Duobao was no longer as happy as before. She was like an eggplant that had been hit by frost, wilting. She dragged her suitcase unhappily and followed her colleagues to the parking lot. The bus that their company had rented was parked there and would take them to the hotel. Suddenly, a series of hurried footsteps came from behind. Before she could pay much attention to it, her arms suddenly tightened as a large palm grabbed her. She slowly turned around and bumped into a pair of deep and cold eyes. Bailey Yun was wearing black suit pants and a white shirt. His handsome face was slightly red from the sun, and his fine hair had a healthy luster under the sun. After not seeing him for more than 10 days, he was still so handsome that people couldn't take their eyes off him. However, his face seemed to have lost some weight, and there was a dark shadow under his eyes. It was obvious that he hadn't been doing well recently. But why wasn't he doing well? He was going to marry another woman. What was wrong with that? Come and see Shinwu 799. Chapter 408. Thinking of this, Li Duobao's heart was filled with anger. She bit her lips and glared at him angrily. He looked at her coldly as well. The two of them looked at each other without saying a word. The colleagues around them were already whispering, full of curiosity about them. She pulled her arm uncomfortably and said stiffly, "Let go, I'm not letting go." His thin lips were pursed as he tried his best to suppress his emotions. "Li Duobao, tell me, what did I do wrong? Why did you want to break up with me?" She clenched her fists tightly and smiled coldly. "Was it because I brought up the breakup first and embarrassed second young master? Is that why you're holding on to me so tightly?" How about this, you'll be the one to bring up the breakup. We'll break up again. Am I that kind of person in your eyes? He tightened his grip on her wrist, causing her bones to hurt. She held on and didn't make a sound. His voice was hoarse as he said word by word, I never said that I wanted to break up. Why are you in such a hurry to leave me? Have you fallen in love with someone else? Li Duobao laughed softly as if she had heard a funny joke. Her laughter was so untimely that it made everyone suspicious. They all quieted down and several pairs of eyes stared at them through the window. The bus driver was only waiting for Li Duobao now. He pressed the horn impatiently. Li Duobao stopped laughing and said indifferently, the person who fell in love with someone else isn't me. Don't put such a crime on me. Let go. I don't want others to see me as a joke anymore. Bailey Yun didn't let go. Instead, he held her even tighter. He grabbed her luggage with his other hand and dragged her in another direction. Li Duobao was forced to follow behind him. She shouted angrily, what are you doing? Let go of me. Bailey Yun didn't say a word. Ignoring her protests, he dragged her to his car, opened the door, stuffed her into the passenger seat, and quickly buckled her seatbelt. The Ferrari disappeared from the parking lot in the blink of an eye. The bus driver shook his head and stepped on the accelerator. The stewardesses in the bus were still sighing about how lucky Li Duobao was. Bailey Yun drove Li Duobao all the way back to his villa in less than an hour. He threw her onto the sofa and held the back of the sofa with his arms. He looked down at her and said in a deep voice, what did you mean by that? Since you didn't fall in love with anyone else, why did you break up? He looked cold and fierce on the surface, but his heart was filled with apprehension. He told himself over and over again that she didn't despise him, she didn't despise him. Li Duobao turned his head away angrily, his eyes glistening with tears. You're the one who fell in love with someone else, but you make it sound like I'm the one who let you down. I hate you to death. Why did you barge into my world? Why did you say things that made me misunderstand? Why did you betray me when I fell in love with you? Bailey Yun's body trembled. He turned her face and forced her to look into his eyes. His voice trembled as he said, Bao, you said you love me. Li Duobao burst into tears. Can't you listen to the main point? You jerk, go away. Don't come near me again. She kicked his leg angrily. Not only was he not angry, but he was ecstatic as he hugged her tightly. He muttered, Bao, you love me. You don't like anyone else. Bao, I'm so happy. Li Duobao was embarrassed and angry that he caught her words. She kicked him with her hands and feet. Go away, don't touch me. We've already broken up. If you want to hug someone else, Bao, don't be agitated. Listen to me, I love you too. I've never betrayed you. Bailey Yun ignored the pain in his leg and hugged her tightly, not letting her break free from his embrace. I don't believe you. I clearly saw you buying a ring with another woman. You're getting married, right? I wish you all the best. Li Duobao's tears fell like rain. God knows how much courage it took for her to say the word of blessing. Bailey Yun was slightly startled. He finally understood how big of a misunderstanding there was between the two of them. He didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He gently stroked her back. Bao, you misunderstood. I asked Hailuan to accompany me to choose a ring because I wanted her to give me advice from a woman's point of view. That ring is not for her. Li Duobao complained tearfully, oh, it's not for Hailuan. You have a second woman. Little fool, where did I get a second woman? The ring is for you. Bailey Yun was afraid that she wouldn't believe him. He hurriedly took out a small red velvet box from his trouser pocket. After opening it, he presented it to her. Look, it's really for you. Li Duobao stared at the ring in front of her in disbelief. She even forgot to cry. It was small, exquisite, and very beautiful. She didn't say a word. She didn't know how long she was in a daze. Bailey Yun accompanied her in silence. He held the ring firmly with both hands and knelt on one knee in front of the sofa. This posture was like a proposal. She pursed her lips. So, did I really misunderstand? You really misunderstood. Bailey Yun secretly breathed a sigh of relief. The corner of his lips hooked up into a gentle smile. He gazed at her affectionately. Bao, will you marry me? Her fair cheeks were slowly dyed with a layer of red. She recalled what she had done and felt guilty. In fact, it was a very simple misunderstanding, but she didn't dare to ask him. As a result, the misunderstanding grew bigger. She almost didn't dare to look into his eyes. She stretched out her finger and said with a trembling voice, "Help me put it on." Bailey Yun grinned and happily answered, "Okay." He gently put the ring on her finger. Li Duobao rubbed the ring on her finger and said awkwardly, "Does your leg still hurt?" She was angry earlier and kicked it a few times. "It doesn't hurt, it doesn't hurt." Bailey Yun grinned like a fool. He even touched his nose foolishly. Where was his high-spirited appearance from before? Li Duobao couldn't help but burst into laughter. She threw herself into his arms and hugged him tightly. She whispered, "Ah Yun, I'm sorry. I misunderstood you." He stroked her long hair and whispered, "Bao, did I make you feel insecure?" She was like a child who had done something wrong. She hung her head and revealed half of her fair neck. Gigai apologized. "I'm sorry. I won't do it again." "Bao, I'm the one who should be apologizing. I didn't do well enough, so I made you feel insecure." He pulled her into his arms, held her face, and kissed her forehead. He said seriously, "Bao, no matter what happens in the future, we have to tell each other. If we have any doubts between us, we have to be honest with each other. We don't have to hide it in our hearts anymore, okay?" She nodded seriously. "Okay. Bao, if we quarrel again in the future, no matter how angry we are, don't ever say that we broke up, okay?" Until now, his heart would ache whenever he recalled the scene when she said that she wanted to break up. Her eyes were filled with tears. "Okay. Ah Yun, I won't say that again. Okay, we won't break up for the rest of our lives." Bailey Yun hugged her tightly and rubbed his chin on her soft hair. The two of them snuggled together quietly. Li Duobao stole glances at the ring on his finger from time to time, and the corners of his lips curled up. How could she hide her thoughts from Bailey Yun? He pinched her nose affectionately and chuckled. "This time, you really scared me to death. Tell me, how are you going to make it up to me?" Her bright eyes turned slightly. She raised her head and kissed him lightly on the chin. He smirked. "Not enough." Her lips slowly moved up and kissed his lips. Their lips touched, and a numb feeling immediately spread throughout his body. He hugged her tightly and tried to use his tongue to pry open her lips. She opened her lips slightly, and his tongue slid into her mouth. His kiss was like wine, making her unknowingly intoxicated. When he let go of her at the last moment, her dress had already slipped down, revealing the spring color of her chest. She leaned on his chest with an intoxicated look in her eyes and softened into a puddle of spring water. He bit her earlobe and panted. "I really want to turn you into my wife immediately. That way, I won't have to endure so much." She placed her soft little hands on his waist and smiled foolishly. Her mother said that if a man was willing to control his desire for her, then he must love her very much. She wanted to hold on to this man who loved her tightly and not let go for the rest of her life. October was the season of osmanthus fragrances. The young wives and young ladies of a city were going crazy. The affectionate second young Master Bailey that they loved so much was actually getting married. How could their hearts not be broken? This month was a double blessing for the Bailey family. First, the rebellious child, Bailey Yun, had finally made a name for himself. His company entered the China market and got off to a good start. Second, the licentious child, Bailey Yun, had finally settled his marriage and welcomed Li Duobao into the family. On the day of the wedding, there was a sea of people and guests. It was very lively. After the wedding, it was already evening. Bailey Yun ignored the ambiguous gazes of his family members and directly carried his little wife, who was so tired that she was about to collapse, upstairs and into the new room. Just a few minutes after he turned around to change his clothes, his little wife was already lying on the quilt in a daze and was about to fall asleep. Bao, get up and change your clothes first. Otherwise, you'll feel uncomfortable. He touched her cheek lovingly. Ho. A certain someone who hadn't had a good night's sleep for 2 days simply ignored him. She turned around and continued to snore. Marriage was so tiring and painful. She didn't want to get married again in this lifetime. Bai Liyun saw how tired she was and couldn't bear to force her. He chuckled and gently helped her remove her hair, remove her makeup, and change her clothes. In order not to wake her up, his movements were very gentle and slow. It took him more than half an hour to help her change into comfortable pajamas. He also removed the makeup on her face and tidied her smooth long hair. Bao, you're finally my wife. Bailey Yun took off his shoes and went to her side and pulled her into his arms. As soon as she touched his chest, she naturally reached out and hugged him. Her little head even rubbed against his chest as a serene smile bloomed on her lips. Bailey Yun lovingly kissed her forehead. His eyes were filled with her. Li Duobao slept until the early hours of the morning. When she opened her eyes in a daze, in the warm new room, the wall lamp was still on. The light was soft and didn't hurt her eyes. Her waist was wrapped around a pair of strong arms and her chest was tightly pressed against a broad chest. Ad Shinwu 799. Chapter 409. She slowly raised her head and saw a handsome face. Although she had been with him day and night for a long time, she still felt that she could not get enough of him. His beautiful eyebrows relaxed, his tall nose bridge, his thin chin, and the faint smile on his thin lips were extremely charming. She could not help but be infatuated as she quietly kissed his lips. He suddenly opened his eyes, which were filled with smiles. The corners of his lips curled up even higher, and his magnetic voice overflowed from his lips. Wifey, looks like you've recovered your energy. Can we begin our wedding night? Her beautiful face was flushed red, and her watery eyes were filled with indescribable emotions. She slightly pursed her lips and took the initiative to wrap her arms around his neck, using her actions to express her feelings. Because he cherished her, he was willing to abstain from lust for her, and because she cherished him, she was willing to give up her shyness for him. His eyes were filled with smiles, and his extremely gentle kisses landed on her skin, releasing his strong feelings bit by bit. He supported the back of her head with one hand and wrapped the other around her slender waist. His nimble and powerful tongue slid into her mouth and sucked as much as he wanted. All that was left of her was a soft whimper, and the heat between his lips and tongue was transmitted into her mind in waves. A kind of emptiness was born in the depths of her soul, and she wanted to ask for more. She began to respond to his feelings, and her hands unconsciously stroked his back. While their lips and teeth were intertwined, his hands were not idle either. He quietly removed the clothes on the two of them, and when their lips separated, the two of them were already naked to each other. His black jade-like eyes became darker and darker, as unfathomable as an abyss. There was a devilish smile on his lips, and his mellow and sexy voice whispered into her ear, "Bauer, call my name." Her entire body had already gone limp, and she was powerless to resist. She trembled and curled up under his body, as if she was panting and moaning, "Ah Yun, Bauer, I love you." His kiss landed on her chest. Her fragrant lips slightly parted, and her watery eyes rippled with charm. Her slender fingers grabbed onto his shoulders, as if she was resisting, but also seemed to be welcoming. Her waist gently twisted into a seductive arc, and a soft moan finally overflowed from her throat. Their limbs were intertwined, and their skin was touching. The sound of her panting seemed to be a little heavier. The cold air mixed with the ambiguous temperature, and no one could dispel it. The painful groan gradually turned into a gentle moan. The two figures were entwined together. Li Duobao whispered his name, "Ah Yun, Ah Yun." Her passionate call made him feel as if he was in the clouds. He hugged her tightly and allowed the storm to wrap around them tightly, throwing them to the top of the waves. That night, he treated her with extreme gentleness, and they finally became husband and wife. When Li Duobao woke up again, it was already noon of the second day. The first thing he felt was pain. His body felt as if it had been run over by a car. The second thing he felt was hunger. He was so hungry that he felt dizzy and his stomach was growling. She subconsciously touched the space beside her. It was empty. She turned her head to look at the empty space. She panicked and felt uncomfortable. When Bailey Yun pushed open the door and entered the room with a plate of food, he saw his wife sitting alone on the bed with a blanket in her arms, crying in a daze. "Baby, what's wrong? Is it too painful?" Bailey Yun quickly put the food tray on the table, walked quickly to the bedside, squatted in front of her and asked softly. Li Duobao ignored the pain in his body and threw herself into his arms. She sobbed aggrievedly, "I didn't see you when I woke up. I thought he didn't want her anymore." Li Duobao suddenly felt that her thoughts were very stupid, so she was too embarrassed to say it out loud. She was afraid that he would laugh at her. Bailey Yun's heart was full of love. He gently stroked her back. "Baby, be good. Don't cry. I was worried that you were hungry, so I went downstairs to bring food up. Look, I asked people to prepare a lot of your favorite dishes." "Oh." She wiped her tears in embarrassment. "You go out first. I want to change my clothes. You're not feeling well. I'll help you change." No, hurry up and go out. Wife, from now on, you have to slowly get used to it, because we are husband and wife." Although he said that, Bailey Yun still left the room. He knew that his wife was very shy. These things needed to be done slowly. Li Duobao forced her sore body to change her clothes. After washing up, she returned to the bedroom. Bailey Yun had already set up the food and smiled at her to hurry up and eat. The fragrant food was all her favorite. Her appetite was greatly stimulated and she quickly ate her stomach until it was round. After the meal, he bent down and carried her to the sofa to rest. She lay on his chest and listened to his steady heartbeat. She actually felt a little drowsy again. Bailey Yun pulled a blanket over her and gently combed her soft hair. His heart was unbelievably soft. There was a soft sound of the door opening. Bailey Yun turned his head to look. Xiao Bao walked in with a sneaky smile. He put his finger on his lips and made a shushing gesture. Xiao Bao nodded in understanding and quietly walked to the sofa. Li Duobao felt that someone was coming over and opened her eyes slightly. Seeing Xiao Bao standing in front of her, she immediately stood up and planned to get up from Bailey Yun's body. Xiao Bao giggled and said, "Aunt Duobao, don't be nervous. I'm here to give you a gift." "Gift?" "Yeah, your wedding gift. You didn't come downstairs today, so I went straight to your room." "I didn't disturb you, did I?" the little guy asked even though he knew the answer. Bailey Yun raised his eyebrows. Li Duobao quickly said, "No, no." Xiao Bao took out the hand behind his back. In his hand was a watercolor painting. The painting was very simple. It was a couple holding a little boy's hand. However, the title was very meaningful. It was called Daddy, Mommy, and Me. He generously handed the watercolor painting to Li Duobao with both hands and grinned. "This is for you. Happy wedding. Son, thank you." Bailey Yun was extremely touched. He hugged him and kissed him hard on the face. "Xiao Bao, you're too good to me. I like you so much." Li Duobao was so touched that tears welled up in his eyes. He wanted to reach out and hug Xiao Bao, but Bailey Yun pulled him into his embrace and hugged both of them. Wife, child, they were all here. What regrets could there be in such a life? Xiao Bao cried out, "Ayaya, Daddy, don't use so much strength. I'm about to be squeezed to death. Aunt Duobao, I beg you, don't wipe your tears and snot on me. Son, can you not spoil the mood like this?" Haha, the sunlight was tranquil, and the laughter of the family of three echoed in the room. Their happiness had just begun. May they continue to be happy. Ad Hongcha 866. Chapter 410. In the VIP ward. The winter sun shone in through the window and lazily spread on the floor, leaving mottled spots of light. A beautiful woman lay on the bed. Her long black hair was soft like silk and draped over her shoulders. She had a gentle smile on her face as she stared at the man standing at the head of the bed. The man was wearing a dark-colored sweater with his sleeves rolled up. He placed his hands in a basin of hot water and twisted a towel before personally wiping her cheeks. The woman smiled. "Qifeng, I can do these things myself." Xiao Qifeng's gentle face had a gentle smile and his dark eyes were full of tenderness. "Yun Yun, if you do everything yourself, what do you need me as your husband for?" "Gigai, don't move. It'll be done soon." On Yun, Xiao Qifeng's wife, was also Xiao Tianqing's sister-in-law. Even though this woman used to be the woman he loved, he could only respectfully address her as sister-in-law now. Xiao Tianqing stood at the door of the ward with his hands slightly clenched into fists. There was no expression on his handsome face as his deep eyes shrouded the two of them. On Yun inadvertently raised her head and saw the person standing at the door. The smile on her face gradually froze and the tenderness in her eyes gradually dissipated. Xiao Qifeng acutely sensed the change in her and unhurriedly finished wiping her hands. He slowly turned around and smiled. "Tianqing, you're back." At some point, the coldness in Xiao Tianqing's eyes had faded, and a cynical smile appeared on his face. He put his hands in his trouser pockets and walked into the ward. "Elder brother, elder sister-in-law, congratulations on having a daughter." Xiao Qifeng smiled gently. "Thank you." On Yun pursed her lips and a smile slowly bloomed in her eyes. She said softly, "Tianqing, was Sonya fun?" Xiao Tianqing sat on the sofa and casually crossed his legs. He grinned. "It was fun. You don't know, but Xiao Rui is now as tanned as a native. His whole body is so black that if you throw him into a pile of coal, you won't be able to tell him apart." On Yun covered her mouth and chuckled softly. Xiao Qifeng shook his head in amusement. "You're making up stories about Xiao Rui. Be careful, he'll settle the score with you if he finds out." Xiao Tianqing shrugged nonchalantly. "What's there to be afraid of? We're all family here." "That's true. Have you gone home to see your parents?" As Xiao Qifeng spoke, he adjusted the blanket for On Yun and even pinched the corner of the blanket. His considerate actions made On Yun purse her lips and smile. Xiao Tianqing exclaimed exaggeratedly. "As long as the old master doesn't summon me, I'll definitely not walk into his trap." Otherwise, I'll be scolded to death by him. Oh, when will you be sensible? Xiao Qifeng's eyebrows were tinged with a hint of helplessness. The smile on Yun's face faded. She deliberated for a moment and said softly, "In Tianqing, Dad and Mom are old and need someone to take care of them. They really hope that you can move back here." Xiao Tianqing dug his ears and revealed an impatient expression. "Do you have to be like this? Every time we meet, you talk about this topic. My ears are getting calluses. Isn't it good that you guys are taking care of Dad and Mom? At worst, I'll promise you that I'll go home to visit them often." Xiao Qifeng's expression became more and more helpless. His lips moved as if he wanted to say something. Yun pressed the back of his hand at the right time and used her eyes to signal him not to push too hard. Xiao Tianqing looked at the two of them as if they had a tacit understanding of each other's eyes. A hint of sadness flashed through his eyes. "Mr. Xiao, Mrs. Xiao, it's time to feed the child." The nurse carried the child and knocked on the door. Xiao Qifeng suppressed the words that were about to come out of his mouth and said, "Come in." The nurse carried the child in with a smile on her face. "This is my little niece. Let me see." Xiao Tianqing was so excited that he jumped up from the sofa. "Be careful. Don't drop the child." Xiao Qifeng frowned slightly. He was a little worried about his younger brother's impetuous personality. Okay. You're the only one with a child. Don't look down on others." Xiao Tianqing took the child from the nurse's hands. The child was just 4 days old. Her face was not fully developed, and her skin was wrinkled and ugly. He was used to having a sharp tongue and wanted to praise the child. After thinking for a long time, he squeezed out a sentence. "The child is so beautiful. Her nose is her nose, and her eyes are her eyes." Xiao Qifeng's face darkened. Yun could not help but laugh out loud. "Tianqing, who praises people like you?" Xiao Tianqing smiled awkwardly and teased Xiao Bao in his arms. "Little niece, I'm your uncle. Call me uncle." Xiao Qifeng was angry about his praise just now and deliberately attacked him. "I'm her daddy. If you want to call her that, you have to learn how to call me first." Xiao Tianqing looked up and glared at him. "Brother, can you not be so vengeful?" Xiao Qifeng sighed helplessly. "Forget it. I'm tired of bickering with you." Yun laughed again. Actually, she really wanted to see the two brothers bickering. At least it meant that the invisible barrier between them was slowly disappearing. Yi Siki did not expect to meet Xiao Tianqing here. He was wearing a black coat and a scarf around his neck. He was sitting on a bench on the lawn of the hospital. His handsome face was expressionless. His deep eyes were looking indifferently into the distance. No one knew what he was looking at. The winter sun poured down on him, and there was a faint sense of loneliness. Yi Siki, who had been walking towards the hospital building, stopped in her tracks. She turned her legs and walked slowly towards him in her high heels. The crisp sound of her high heels stopped a few meters away from him. Xiao Tianqing slowly shifted his gaze. Yi Siki was wearing a cashmere coat and a pair of brown high-heeled boots. She was carrying a bag in her hand and smiled at him. "You're back from Sonya." Xiao Tianqing's lips curled up. "Yeah." Yi Siki sat beside him. There was a short distance between them. She smiled faintly. "What are you doing here? Are you not feeling well?" He turned to look at her. There was a questioning look in his eyes. "Are you worried about me?" Yi Siki smiled. "Yes. You've helped me so many times. It's only right that I care about you, Teacher Xiao." Teacher Xiao. This was what she called him when he gave her advice on her marriage. His eyes were filled with warmth. Unfortunately, the warmth quickly dissipated. He said indifferently, I'm here to visit my sister-in-law. She just gave birth to a daughter. Speaking of which, it's such a coincidence that your husband helped her deliver the baby. Yisiki was slightly stunned. Shihao had only helped one woman deliver a baby in the past few days, and that was the daughter of the municipal party secretary. Moreover, he had been called back by the hospital director when he was on vacation in Sanya. She composed herself and joked, don't you want a daughter too? You're an uncle now. You're considered very close to the child. Xiao Tianqing's lips curved into a mocking smile. I almost wasn't the child's uncle anymore. I almost became the child's father. Yisiki was stunned. She forced a smile. You can't make such jokes casually. His gaze was slightly cold and his lips were pursed. Do you still remember that I told you that we're in the same boat? Of course she remembered. She had a deep impression of his lonely expression at that time. At that time, she had unintentionally hurt him, and she had been upset for a long time. He looked into the distance with a cold gaze and said slowly, Yun Yun, my brother, and I grew up together. Originally, Yun Yun and I were a couple, but both parents felt that Yun Yun and my brother were more compatible. Yun Yun chose to marry my brother under her parents' persuasion. She didn't even resist at all. On the eve of their wedding, I ran to her house without a care in the world. I said, let's elope. She looked at me and smiled. After she smiled, she said, Tianqing, don't be silly. Where can the two of us escape to? She said, I think my dad is right. Qifeng and I are more compatible. He's mature and steady, while you're like a child. You never grow up, and you make me feel insecure. At that time, my entire heart turned cold. I attended their wedding and saw her smiling happily in my brother's arms. I still didn't want to believe it. I told myself that she must have been forced. There was no love between her and my brother. I moved out of the house because I didn't want to face them. Until today, when I saw how loving they were, I realized how ridiculous I was. They had already forgotten about me. I was the only one who was still foolishly standing in the same place. It turned out that he had such a past. On the surface, he was frivolous, but in reality, he was more devoted than anyone else. Yisiki completely changed her view of him at that moment and truly saw him as a friend. She pursed her lips and said softly, I'm not as smart as you. I don't know how to comfort you, but I want to tell you, Xiao Tianqing, you're a good man. You'll find the happiness that belongs to you. Xiao Tianqing was slightly stunned. Her gaze was very serious, and it didn't seem like she was comforting him. He smiled and said, You're the first person to say that I'm a good man. She smiled sincerely. When I was in trouble, you saved me. When I was helpless, you didn't take advantage of me. You gave me advice and helped me save my marriage. I'm really grateful to you. No matter what kind of disguise you use, I know that you're a good person. He smiled. Thank you. She smiled back. You're welcome. The loneliness between his brows gradually disappeared. He raised his eyebrows. You're here to see your husband? Yes, isn't it lunchtime? Yisiki waved the bag in her hand. I made chicken soup and planned to send it to his office. Xiao Tianqing's eyes moved slightly. His lips curled into a meaningful smile. Call him and ask him to come here. She was slightly stunned. Here. It's very cold outside. The chicken soup will turn cold very quickly. He was exasperated. Why are you still so stubborn? If your husband comes and sees such a suave and handsome man sitting next to you, how will he feel? Her eyes widened. I understand. He lifted his chin in satisfaction. Make the call. After the call, Xiao Tianxing asked her, "Have you asked your husband? Why did he want to meet by Mei Wei at seductive charm but lie to you? Come and see." Hongcha 866. Chapter 411. Yi Siki shook her head. "Why didn't you ask?" She looked down at the withered lawn and said calmly, "I was going to ask him, but on second thought, it's been too long. If I ask him now, it'll seem like I don't trust him enough. Since I've decided to take him back, I'll trust him one more time." Xiao Tianxing raised his eyebrows thoughtfully. She suddenly looked up and smiled at him. "I almost forgot. Tell me your bank account number. I'll transfer the money to you later." He said helplessly, "Must you calculate it so clearly?" "Of course. Even if we're friends, I can't take advantage of you." Yisiki took out a post-it note and a pen from her handbag and urged, "Hurry up and tell me. You're a man. Don't be so wishy-washy." "Okay." Xiao Tianxing had no choice but to give her his bank account number. He looked down at her. Her slender fingers were holding the pen as she wrote down her bank account number on the post-it note. Her beautiful side profile glowed healthily under the sunlight, and there was a peaceful smile on her red lips. "Is this it? I didn't write it wrong, right?" "No." The corners of his lips turned up, and there was a hint of a smile in his dark eyes. Yisiki put the post-it note and pen back into her handbag. Suddenly, a hand reached out to her cheek and brushed a strand of hair behind her ear. She looked up in surprise and met his obsidian-like eyes. He chuckled. "Don't move. Your husband is here." She stiffly maintained the position of looking at him. She pursed her lips and said in a low voice, "Okay, don't go overboard. Don't worry. I know what I'm doing." His voice was also very low, and there was a gentle smile on his face. From afar, they looked like a couple looking at each other affectionately. Lin Shihao was wearing a brown coat and bathed in the sunlight. He stood less than 10 meters away from them. His gentle and handsome face was covered with dark clouds, and his tall and straight body was shrouded in a low pressure. His eyes were heavy as he looked at the man and woman who were talking and laughing in low voices. His heart was filled with an indescribable anger and jealousy. In his memory, ever since the two of them confirmed their relationship, Siki had never been so intimate with another man. He had always been sure that Siki loved him deeply and was sure that she would be his wife for life. He had never considered the possibility that she might fall in love with another man. For the first time, he felt a sense of crisis in his heart. Xiao Tianxing seemed to be focusing all his attention on Yisiki, but in fact, he had been paying attention to Lin Shihao's movements from the corner of his eye. When he realized that Lin Shihao had been standing not far away, the smile on his lips widened. He said in a low voice, "It's about time. Pretend that you just found him." Although Yisiki already knew that her husband was watching them, she was so nervous that she did not dare to peek at him. Her back was so stiff that it was sweating. After hearing Xiao Tianxing's instructions, she pretended to look up inadvertently. Then she quickly stood up and smiled brightly. "Hubby, you're here." Lin Shihao's eyes moved slightly. His lips slowly curved into a faint smile as he walked in the direction where they were sitting. "Who is this?" He looked at Xiao Tianxing, who was still sitting on the bench. His dark jade-like eyes were slightly cold. Yisiki hurriedly introduced them. "Tianxing, this is my husband, Lin Shihao. Hubby, this is my new friend, Xiao Tianxing." Tianxing. What an affectionate way of addressing him. Lin Shihao's smile widened, but there was no warmth in his smile. He said indifferently, "Nice to meet you, Mr. Xiao." Xiao Tianxing stood up and smiled. "Nice to meet you, Dr. Lin. Next time you and Siki come to my bar, I'll give you a free bill." Yi Siki smiled and explained, Tianxing is the boss behind Charm Bar. Hubby, when can we go and have some fun together? Lin Shihao was still bothered by how Xiao Tianxing addressed Siki intimately. The fire of jealousy in his heart burned brighter and brighter. However, when Siki suddenly mentioned Charm Bar, Lin Shihao's eyes suddenly narrowed. The smile on his lips became stiff, and his hands quietly clenched. Bai Meiwei invited him to Charm Bar every time. Could it be that Xiao Tianxing had already discovered his secret? No, it was impossible. If Xiao Tianxing had discovered his secret, he would definitely tell Siki. He slowly calmed down and smiled. Okay, but there's no need for a free bill. How can we let Mr. Xiao spend money? As he spoke, he calmly reminded Xiao Tianxing that Siki was already a married woman. Unexpectedly, Xiao Tianxing quickly threw another bomb. He raised his eyebrows and smiled. The two of you are really alike. Neither of you is willing to take advantage of others. Siki, say hello to little Nyonyo for me. I miss her. I still have something to do, so I'll leave first. Talk to you later. Lin Shihao looked at him coldly, waved his hand coolly, and turned to leave. Once his potential love rival left, Lin Shihao didn't have to keep a straight face. His face immediately darkened, and he sat on the bench without saying a word. Yi Siki stole a glance at his livid face and laughed inwardly. She quickly walked forward and took out the thermos from the bag. She smiled and said, Hubby, you've worked hard these days. I specially made chicken soup for you. Lin Shihao snorted coldly. I thought you didn't remember that I was your husband. He was jealous. Yi Siki had never heard him speak to her in such a sour tone. To be honest, she enjoyed it. She tried hard to hold back her laughter and blinked innocently. Hubby, what do you mean by that? He raised his chin arrogantly and stared at her coldly. Don't play dumb. What's up with that Xiao Tianxing? She widened her eyes in realization. Oh, you're talking about Tianxing. He's actually Bailey Han's friend. Once, Bailey Han and Xia had an argument. To stand up for Xia, I went to Bailey Han to settle the score. Tianxing was there at the time, and that's how we got to know each other. Tianxing. His cold aura almost froze her to death. You've already gotten to the point where you call each other by their names. Yi Siki looked innocent. Don't make it sound so bad. We're just ordinary friends. Lin Shihao snorted coldly. His jealous face was exposed. I don't think he simply sees you as an ordinary friend. How did he get to know Nyonyo? Why didn't she realize that he was so cute when he was jealous? Yi Siki tried hard to hold back her laughter and pretended to be trying her best to explain. Weren't you on vacation in Sanya 2 days ago? You were called back by the director in advance. I took Nyonyo to swim and bumped into him at the swimming pool. He's a very nice person and took the initiative to teach Nyonyo how to swim. Speaking of which, it's a coincidence that he went to Sanya to visit a friend and stayed in the same hotel as us. What about just now? You were so close to each other. What's up with that? Thinking about how they were talking and laughing in low voices just now, and how Xiao Tianxing even helped her tidy up her hair by her ears, the jealousy in his heart rose instead of subsiding. He was in a bad mood, so I was comforting him. As for the reason, she thought for a moment and said, it involves his personal affairs, so I'm not in a good position to talk about it. He stared at her. You'd rather let me misunderstand than explain it clearly. Yi Siki was slightly taken aback. His words made her involuntarily recall the scene of him and Bai Meiwei hugging each other at Charming Attraction. Her mood instantly fell, and she said gloomily, aren't you the same? Lin Shihao's body stiffened. His fingers clenched tightly, his nails digging deep into his palms. He breathed slowly, trying his best to control himself, but his dark eyes inadvertently revealed his emotions. On one hand, he felt guilty toward her and wanted to compromise. On the other hand, he was jealous and indignant. The two conflicting emotions intertwined and messed up his mind. He almost couldn't control himself. With an ashen face, he abruptly stood up and said coldly, "I'm going back to the office first." He was worried that if he stayed any longer, he might say something that would hurt her. Isiki stared blankly at his back as he strode away. Her fingers gripped the thermos so tightly that her knuckles turned white. She didn't know when, but her eyes were already misty. Was he feeling guilty? Otherwise, why would he run away so quickly? There was a special cafeteria in the hospital that provided meals for the doctors and nurses, but it was obvious that they had missed the meal time. After feeling sad, Isiki decided to send the chicken soup to his office. As she walked slowly along the corridor of the hospital, she occasionally saw family members supporting patients as they sought medical attention. When she saw the patients in pain, she thought of their marriage. Their marriage was also ill, but fortunately, it wasn't incurable. She had to work hard to save it. With this thought, her fighting spirit reignited. She straightened her back and stroked the hair by her ear. With a smile on her face, she walked towards Lin Shihao's office. She reminded herself not to provoke him when she saw him later. She didn't want to bring up the unhappy things. She just wanted to move him with gentle words. The door to the office was ajar. A woman's voice could be heard. "Shihao, I came to call you when it was time to eat just now. You weren't around, so I specially brought you a meal. It's all your favorite dishes." Isiki would never forget this voice for the rest of her life. It was by Mei Wei. Isiki took a deep breath and slowly exhaled. She tried her best to force a smile so that the smile on her face looked warm and natural. Then she gently pushed open the door. Bai Meiwei's back was facing the door as she stood in front of the office desk. There was a takeout on the table. Lin Shihao sat in the office chair expressionlessly. He had a pen in his hand and was writing something on a piece of paper. He didn't seem to care about Bai Meiwei's existence at all. Isiki's smile didn't change. Her voice was gentle as she said, "Hubby, I brought the chicken soup over." Lin Shihao suddenly looked up and met her eyes. Hearing Isiki's voice, Bai Meiwei's body stiffened. She didn't rush to turn around. Isiki's smile widened. She walked straight to the desk and put down the thermos. As if she didn't see Bai Meiwei, she opened the thermos and took out the lunchbox and soup box. The chicken soup was piping hot and emitted a strong fragrance. She then took out a pair of sanitary chopsticks from the bag and handed it to him. She said gently, "Hubby, eat it while it's hot. You're really too much. You were so focused on fighting with her just now that you didn't even think about how hungry you are. Come and see." Songshu 566. Chapter 412. Lin Shihao's deep eyes were filled with complex emotions. His Adam's apple bobbed a few times, and he suddenly held her hand. Perhaps it was because she had been outside for too long, but her hand was as cold as ice. His heart instantly softened, and he wrapped his hands around hers. His voice was hoarse as he said, "Your hand is so cold. Have you caught a cold?" Isiki curled her fingers and gently scratched his palm. She chuckled and said, "Hurry and let go. Dr. Bai is still here. You're making a fool of yourself." He didn't even look at Bai Meiwei. All his attention was on her. Not only did he not let go, he held her hand even tighter. The corners of his lips slowly turned up. "Stop fooling around. Your hand is so cold. Let me warm it for you." Isiki was helpless. "Hubby, don't worry about me. Hurry up and eat. Otherwise, it'll get cold later. Gigai, wait for another 2 minutes. The food won't get cold. I really don't know what to do with you. The two of them spoke as if there was no one else around. Their sweetness was exposed, and they didn't have any intention of avoiding suspicion in front of outsiders. Bai Meiwei looked at their hands that were held together. She really wanted to rush up and break them apart, but she tried hard to control herself. She dug her nails into her palms and forced a smile. Shihao, sister-in-law, I won't disturb you anymore. Yi Siki smiled generously. Dr. Bai, thank you for bringing back lunch for my husband. But he can't eat that much right now. Look, this extra portion. Bai Meiwei's face was pale, and her eyes were misty. She looked at Lin Shihao aggrievedly, hoping that he would say a few words for her. Lin Shihao didn't even raise his head as he said indifferently, Dr. Bai, Xiao Wang is still in surgery. He hasn't had lunch either. Leave that boxed lunch for him. Bai Meiwei's entire body trembled as if she had suffered a huge blow. She reluctantly agreed, picked up the boxed lunch, straightened her back, and walked out with a lonely aura. It's tiring to stand. Sit down. Lin Shihao pulled Yi Siki to sit on the chair beside him. His eyes were filled with a warm smile. My hands are already warm. Hurry up and eat. Yi Siki pulled her hands away. He rubbed the back of her hand with his fingers as if to feel if her hand was warm. After a while, he let go of her. Wear more clothes when you go out in the future. Although you look beautiful like this, I want to see a healthy wife more. Yi Siki pursed her lips and smiled. I know, naggy old man. He raised an eyebrow. You despise me. She blinked. How would I dare? I can't wait to like it. Lin Shihao chuckled softly and threw the unpleasantness that had just happened to the back of his mind. Yi Siki rested her chin on her hand as she looked at him. Her thoughts drifted back to a few years ago. At that time, they were still in university. Every day when they went to the cafeteria to eat, he would let her take a seat while he squeezed into the crowd to buy food. The other boys who passed by were all a little embarrassed. Only he was dressed neatly and had a gentle smile on his face. He carried 2 servings of food and walked towards her confidently. Her heart ached slightly. She pursed her lips and said softly, Hubby, actually, there's really nothing between me and Xiao Tianxing. He came to the hospital to visit his sister-in-law. We bumped into each other by chance and chatted for a while. He had already finished eating and was tidying up the thermos. When he heard what she said, he paused. After tidying up, he looked up at her. There was a faint sadness in his eyes and his tone was bleak. Wifey, I'm not suspecting you. I just have a sense of crisis. I'm worried that you've been abducted by someone else. Yi Siki was stunned. She smiled and said, There are times when you're not confident. He walked to her side and hugged her from above. He said in a low voice, You're so charming, but I'm already old. Of course I'm worried that you'll be seduced by a young man. She pushed his arm and chuckled. How are you old? You're handsome and in the prime of your life. You've already charmed a lot of women. He had even charmed a high-quality woman like Bai Meiwei. He sighed softly. I only want to charm you. Didn't someone just say that I'm a naggy old man? Yi Siki turned her head and looked at his handsome face. She played dumb. Did someone say that you're a naggy old man? Why didn't I hear that? Who said that? I'll help you teach that person a lesson. Lin Shihao's eyes lit up. He ruffled her hair and smiled dotingly. Naughty. She suddenly stood up and hugged him tightly before quickly letting go. Hubby, although I can't bear to leave, I have to go. Otherwise, I'll be accused of disturbing Dr. Lin's work. Okay, I'll come back early tonight. He bent down and kissed the corner of her lips. She was so embarrassed that her face turned red. She was afraid that someone would push the door open and enter at this moment. He helped her put on her coat and said gently, "Be careful on the road." There weren't many patients in the afternoon, so Lin Shihao could get off work on time. As soon as he came out of the office, he saw Bai Meiwei coming out of the office next door with a leather bag. "Shihao, let's go to the movies tonight." She said it as a statement, not as if she was asking for his opinion. Lin Shihao frowned slightly and said in a low voice, "No, I want to go home early." Bai Meiwei took 2 steps closer to him and said in a voice that only the two of them could hear, "Have you forgotten that we made a promise? If you go on 5 dates with me within a month, I'll give up the child. Do you want to break this promise?" Lin Shihao's frown deepened. There was a hint of impatience in his deep eyes. He said in a low voice, "The dates will start next week." She put her hand on his arm naturally and said softly, "I already gave in to you the last time in Sonya. Can't you give in to me this time? Today is my birthday. I don't ask for much. I just want you to have dinner with me and watch a movie with me." Without batting an eyelid, he brushed her hand away and said indifferently, "Is today really your birthday?" It was too much of a coincidence. He had neglected her in the afternoon and made her angry. Now, she wanted him to have dinner and watch a movie with her. He almost suspected that she was doing it on purpose. She looked gloomy and laughed self-deprecatingly. "Why would I lie to you about something like this? If you don't believe me, you can call my dad and ask him. Since it's your birthday today, you should go home and reunite with your parents. My dad has an operation tonight. My mom is traveling overseas. Other than you, I can't find anyone else to celebrate my birthday with me. Shihao, even if we're just friends, you can't just watch me celebrate my birthday alone, right?" She stared at him with her beautiful eyes, which were full of pleading. Lin Shihao's lips tightened. After a moment of silence, he finally gave up and said in a low voice, "After today, there are only 4 dates left. Remember your promise." She smiled. "I'll always remember it clearly." He looked at her deeply and turned to leave. He didn't care if she could keep up with him. On the way out of the hospital, he took out his phone and called Yisiki. "Honey, I'm celebrating my colleague's birthday tonight. I won't be home for dinner. I might be back a little late. You and Nyonyo don't have to wait for me. Rest early." Yisiki glanced at the prepared ingredients on the kitchen counter. It was sumptuous, and all of them were his and Nyonyo's favorites. She smiled. "Okay, I got it. You can't hold your liquor well. Don't drink if you can." Okay." His laughter was deep and joyful. Bai Meiwei walked behind him. She heard every word he said. Her fingers tightened around her purse, and a hint of hostility appeared in her eyes. If Lin Shihao turned around at this moment, he would be able to clearly see her face contorted with jealousy. Lin Shihao didn't care about what to eat at all. He simply said, "Anything." Bai Meiwei's smile didn't change. She suggested Western food, but Lin Shihao still said, "Anything." It was supposed to be a romantic candlelight dinner. They were a perfect couple, and it attracted the attention of many people around them. Unfortunately, the male lead didn't give them any face. He was so stingy that he refused to smile. He continued to enjoy the food expressionlessly. It wasn't until the end of the meal that he politely raised his glass and said, "Happy birthday." "Thank you." Even though she had been ignored for an entire night, Bai Meiwei still smiled because of his well wishes. Ever since that drunken mess, Lin Shihao secretly swore that he would never drink again. So for tonight's candlelight dinner, he used cola instead of red wine. He symbolically took a sip of cola, put down the glass, and called the waiter over to pay the bill. When the two of them came out of the Western restaurant, the sky was already dark. The streets were brightly lit, and the cold didn't stop people from enjoying the nightlife. There were more than 10 people lining up at the entrance of the cinema to buy tickets. Lin Shihao raised his wrist to look at the time, and his brows furrowed. Bai Meiwei smiled secretly. She reached into her purse and took out her phone. She waved it in front of his eyes and smiled brightly. Dang dang dang, look at what this is. It's an electronic movie coupon. I've already booked the tickets in advance. Lin Shihao didn't show any special expression. He said indifferently, since it's like this, you can go to the self-service terminal to exchange for movie tickets. I'll go buy drinks. What do you like to drink? She pursed her lips. Lemon tea. After she exchanged for the movie tickets, she stood at the entrance of the cinema and looked at Lin Shihao, who was not far away. He stood in front of the hot drink store, and the soft light poured down on him. He was as gentle as jade, and it felt like a lifetime ago. They were clearly so close to each other, but she felt like there was a gap between them. She wanted to cross it, but he kept retreating. In this tug-of-war of love, she didn't want to be the loser, so she had no choice but to force herself to get closer to him, little by little. She quietly picked up her phone and took a picture of him standing in front of the hot drink store. They were like two strangers who walked into the cinema one after the other. Under the dim lights, they found their seats. Bai Meiwei sat on Lin Shihao's left. He sat up straight, and his hands were naturally placed on the armrests of the chair. He looked straight ahead. Even though the movie hadn't started yet, the ending song of the previous movie was still playing on the big screen. But he was watching it very seriously. Attention, Songshu 566. Chapter 413. Bai Meiwei knew that he was actually trying to avoid communicating with her, but this was a good opportunity for her. She quietly placed her right hand on the armrest of the chair, very close to his left hand. She pretended to play with her phone with her left hand and quickly took a picture of the two hands side by side. The movie wasn't good. It was a big production with a famous director, famous actors, and a huge amount of money. It was advertised that an elite Hollywood production team would be joining the cast, but the plot was terrible and lacked logic. In order to pursue the so-called cool scenes, the complete plot was abandoned, leaving the audience confused. Many people around them cursed the movie in low voices, and some even got up to leave. However, Lin Shihao watched it very seriously. If the plot wasn't good, he would admire the scenes. If the scenes were too fake, he would admire the actors acting. If the acting was terrible, at least the costumes were good. In short, he was completely immersed in his own world, completely ignoring the actions and emotions of the people around him. Seeing him like this, Bai Meiwei became even more determined. She clicked and sent the two photos she had secretly taken to a phone number. Yisiki was sitting on the sofa with Nyo Nyo in her arms, watching TV. The mother and daughter were laughing heartily from the costume comedy, so they didn't hear the text message ringtone at all. After the TV series ended, she carried her daughter back to the room to sleep. Only then did she realize that there were two unread messages. The number was unfamiliar. She curiously opened the messages. There was not a single word in them, only two pictures. The first picture was a profile of a man standing in front of a hot drinks restaurant. The background of the picture was a movie theater. Although it was a little far, Yisiki recognized at a glance that it was Lin Shihao. However, she still couldn't believe her eyes. After zooming in on the picture, she confirmed that the person was indeed Lin Shihao. The second picture was of two hands placed side by side on the armrest of the chair. From the back of the hands, it was easy to tell that it was a man's hand and a woman's hand. The man's finger was wearing a ring, and the design was exactly the same as Yisiki's. Without a doubt, this hand was also Lin Shihao's. The hand side by side with him should be Bai Meiwei's, and the person who sent her these two messages should also be Bai Meiwei's. Lin Shihao lied to her again. Yi Siki's fingers trembled and she almost dropped her phone. It was already past 9 o'clock and he still hadn't come back. Her burning heart slowly turned cold. Xiao Tianxing did not expect to receive a call from Yi Siki at this time. After the call was connected, the other party did not speak for a long time. He said hello a few times but did not hear any response. He muttered suspiciously, could it be that the woman dialed the wrong number? Just as he was about to end the call, a tired voice came from the other end. Xiao Tianxing, he lied to me again. Xiao Tianxing's fingers suddenly tightened. He paused and chuckled. It's the right thing to come to me when something like this happens. Tell me, what exactly happened? Yi Siki leaned back on the sofa and held her forehead with one hand. Her voice sounded very depressed. He said that it's his colleague's birthday, so he wants to celebrate it with her and will be back later. But just now, I received 2 photos. She briefly described the contents of the photos. It's obvious that he's with Bai Meiwei. They're watching a movie together. God knows, we haven't been to a movie theater together for a few years. Xiao Tianxing's gaze turned cold and his lips curled into a sneer. I didn't expect Bai Meiwei to be so capable. She laughed bitterly. Her laughter was worse than her crying. Yeah, I admire her too. I feel like I can't handle this woman anymore. Xiao Tianxing suddenly raised his voice. Are you stupid? You still have me as your teacher. Under my careful guidance, it won't be difficult to defeat her. Let me tell you, the battle to protect your marriage has just begun. Don't you dare back out. Yi Siki's cold heart warmed a little. She laughed silently. I'm not backing out. I'm just feeling a little uncomfortable, so I called you to ask for comfort and guidance. Xiao Tianxing said with satisfaction, that's good. Yi Siki, don't be blinded by anger and sadness. Don't lose yourself because of this. Myself? I'm getting more and more confused about what kind of person I am. Then do you want to know what kind of person you are in my eyes? Go ahead. Chivalrous, passionate, straightforward. My greatest strength is that I love my husband wholeheartedly. My greatest weakness is that I love my husband wholeheartedly, so much so that I forget to love myself. Xiao Tianxing paused and said slowly in a low voice, Yi Siki, let me ask you. Before you married Lin Shihao, did you have any dreams? Yi Siki froze. Dreams. She had almost forgotten that she had such a thing. Ever since she married Lin Shihao, she only had him in her heart. Ever since she had Nyonyo, she only had her family in her heart. She had long given up on her dreams and was content to be a housewife. Her fingers gripped the armrest of the sofa tightly. Her voice was trembling. Yes, what are your dreams? His voice was low, like a muffled thunder that was thrown into the lake in her heart. Although it didn't explode, it stirred up a wave of panic. It was the panic of something that had been forgotten quietly revealed. She pressed her chest and said slowly, my husband and I studied at a medical university. He studied clinical medicine, and I chose nutrition. My dream back then was to become a nutritionist. She grinned self-deprecatingly. Actually, I've achieved my dream. As a housewife, I've been studying recipes every day. I want my husband and children to eat healthier and more nutritious food. He paused. Are you willing to limit your talents to a family? Yi Siki was silent for a long time. Then she chuckled. Xiao Tianxing, do you always hit the nail on the head like this? I don't mean to criticize you. I just want you to see your heart clearly. Many women are willing to give up their careers and hobbies for their families. They don't care if this kind of giving up will cause them pain or regret. Even if they don't get the corresponding return from their families after giving up, they still give up as usual. It's not because they're stupid, but because they still love. To such women, I only want to say one thing. Marry me. Isiki burst out laughing. If you don't add that last sentence, you can really become a counselor. Xiao Tianqing laughed. What? Can I fool you? I was a top student with double degrees at Harvard University. One of my degrees was in psychology. She sighed sincerely. I'm impressed. I didn't expect you to be so amazing when you don't show your true colors. He shrugged and said arrogantly, so, you've gotten a great bargain. Where else can you find a talented, good-looking, and free marriage counselor like me? Yes, yes, yes. I'm really grateful to you, Mr. Xiao. After teasing him, her mood was much better. Xiao Tianqing smiled. Let's meet tomorrow. I have something to give you. He always liked to be mysterious. Isiki asked what it was, but he refused to tell her the answer. He just wanted her to look forward to it. After the movie ended, Lin Shihao offered to send Bai Meiwei home. Although he didn't want to have anything to do with her, from a gentleman's point of view, he couldn't let her take a taxi home by herself. After all, it was late at night, and it wasn't safe for her to take a taxi by herself. Bai Meiwei mistook his sense of moral responsibility for his concern for her. Although she said those words politely, she was actually overjoyed. By the time Lin Shihao sent her home and returned home, it was almost 11 o'clock. The lights in the living room and bedroom were on. Isiki was lying on her side on the bed. She was curled up under the quilt and looked like she was already asleep. Lin Shihao was worried that the sound of running water would wake her up, so he took a towel to the bathroom in the living room to take a shower. After tidying himself up, he quietly lay down beside her and turned off the table lamp. He moved closer to her and hugged her from behind. She murmured softly, as if she was dreaming, "Hubby." He replied softly, "I'm here." She suddenly turned around and leaned against his chest. Her right hand clutched his pajamas tightly, as if she was afraid that he would run away. Lin Shihao felt a sour and astringent taste in his heart. He lowered his head and kissed her forehead, hugging her tightly. The next day, it started to snow. The sky was gloomy, and snowflakes fluttered in the air. Isiki walked into the cafe where they had agreed to meet. There was a layer of snow on her hat. Xiao Tianqing got up and helped her remove her jacket in a gentlemanly manner. She was a little embarrassed and smiled. "Thank you." He gestured for the waiter to pass them the menu. "What would you like to drink?" She glanced at it casually. "Cappuccino." The coffee was quickly served, along with a few exquisite desserts. Isiki gently stirred her coffee and smiled. "Now can you tell me what you're going to give me?" Xiao Tianqing took something out of his pocket and placed it beside her coffee cup. "This is a miniature tracker. There's a SIM card inserted into it. Put the tracker in the trunk of Lin Shihao's car. In the future, no matter where he drives, you can use your cell phone to dial the SIM card number in the tracker to get his exact location." Isiki was dumbfounded. "Follow him." No, no, no. I can't do that." Xiao Tianqing was exasperated. "Idiot. Following him is not our goal. Our goal is to know his whereabouts and ruin his date with Bai Meiwei. Do you understand?" She was a little flustered when she saw the tracker. "I understand. But if my husband finds out about this, he'll definitely think that I'm interfering with his privacy. I won't be able to clear my name even if I jump into the Yellow River. Also, I don't want things to develop to that stage. I think it's better for us to trust each other a little more." Xiao Tianqing sneered. You trust him, but he's lying again and again. Even if he has some hidden troubles, you'll still feel bitterly disappointed, won't you? Beauty novel, Hongcha 866. Chapter 414. Xiao Tianqing sneered, you trust him, but he's been lying time and time again. Even if he's hiding something, you'll still feel bitterly disappointed, won't you? He hit the nail on the head, and she couldn't refute him. Her face turned slightly pale, and her fingers tightened around the coffee cup. He stared into her eyes and said seriously, you've seen it for yourself. Bai Meiwei isn't an easy woman to deal with. Even if your husband doesn't have any feelings for her now, can you guarantee that he'll be able to withstand her repeated attempts to seduce him? I want you to know Lin Shihao's whereabouts, not to argue with him, but to destroy Bai Meiwei's schemes without leaving any traces. Your opponent isn't Lin Shihao, but Bai Meiwei. Do you understand? Yi Siki gripped the coffee cup tightly with both hands. Two little people arguing appeared in her mind. One of them told her to trust Lin Shihao and give him some personal space, while the other helped Xiao Tianqing persuade her to think positively. After struggling with herself for a while, she finally gave in. She gritted her teeth with a pale face and said, okay, I'll listen to you. Xiao Tianqing grinned and leaned back. Very good. Here's my plan. If you think his actions are suspicious in the future, contact me immediately, and we'll show up at the place where he and Bai Meiwei are meeting. Yi Siki thought about it and nodded slowly. Xiao Tianqing elegantly took a sip of coffee. Did you pass the exam to become a nutritionist? Although she didn't understand why he brought this up, she still answered truthfully, I only worked for a year before going home to take care of my husband and children. I didn't have time to pass the exam to become a nutritionist. Why are you asking this? Xiao Tianqing tapped his slender fingers on the table. Have you ever thought about going out to work and fulfilling your dreams? Yi Siki was stunned. She hadn't expected him to take her words to heart. She ran her fingers through her hair and smiled. I've thought about it before, especially now that Nyonyo is getting older. I don't need to spend too much time taking care of the children, so I have more free time. However, I haven't interacted with the outside world for 5 to 6 years, and I feel like I'm out of touch with the world. It won't be easy to find a job that suits me. Xiao Tianqing's thin lips curved slightly, and his eyes were smiling. I have a friend who works in the catering business. He needs a nutritionist. If you're interested, I can introduce you to him. According to him, the job is very easy. He works 5 hours a day and has 2 weekends off. The main task is to formulate nutritious meal plans, develop nutritious recipes, train the catering staff, and so on. Upon hearing his introduction, Yi Siki couldn't help but feel excited. Not only was the working hours short, so she had enough time to take care of her family, but more importantly, the work could stimulate her passion. As a housewife, her greatest hobby over the years was to study recipes. It would be great if she could bring this interest into her work. However, she hesitated for a moment and said, I'm afraid I'm not qualified enough to do this job well. I don't have any nutritionist qualifications. If you're willing, you can start as an assistant nutritionist. The current senior nutritionist is in his 50s and is about to retire. He's considering passing on his skills and experience to a newcomer. If you can gain his favor and learn from him, you'll be able to inherit his mantle in the future. Xiao Tianqing spoke with assurance. He seemed to be very familiar with his friend's hotel. Yi Siki's blood was boiling because of his words. To be able to learn from the experience of the older generation, this kind of opportunity was really hard to come by. She said excitedly, I'm willing. Please, I really want to work in your friend's company. Xiao Tianqing's eyes curved as he teased, aren't you going to ask which company it is? Aren't you going to ask about the salary and benefits? Aren't you afraid that I'll sell you? She smiled confidently. You won't. He raised his eyebrows. Why? The smile on her face widened. Because you're a good person. He smiled and shook his head. You really trust people easily. That's because you're trustworthy. After interacting with him a few times, she was sure that he wasn't a bad person. Even if his tongue was a little harsh, he was still a good man with a kind heart. Xiao Tianqing's eyes were full of smiles. He took out a business card and handed it to her. This is my friend's business card. When you're ready, take it and report to the hotel's HR department. Century Splendid was the best hotel in City A. The group also owned Century Splendid restaurant and department stores. When Yisiki's gaze moved down and saw the CEO's name, she was so shocked that her eyeballs almost fell out. She looked at the business card dumbfoundedly, then looked up at the smiling man in front of her. I am not seeing things, right? You're the CEO of Century Splendid. Xiao Tianqing shrugged elegantly. Congratulations, your eyesight is not bad. The corner of her mouth twitched. Then why did you lie to me and say that I'm your friend? He combed the loose hair in front of his forehead and pretended to be sad. Sigh, to me, I'm my own friend. There's nothing wrong with saying that. She gritted her teeth. You did it on purpose. He nodded honestly, his eyes full of smiles. I did it on purpose. He wanted to see her shocked expression. Just as he expected, it was wonderful. Yisiki's face darkened and she harumphed. Xiao Tianqing raised his eyebrows and smiled in a way that was asking for a beating. Yisiki, you didn't expect me to be so amazing, did you? You should express a little respect for me. She rolled her eyes at him in annoyance. Yeah, I really didn't expect a rich playboy like you to be so amazing. Not only are you the boss of a bar, but you're also the boss of a 5-star hotel. He admired her angry look and raised his eyebrows with a smile. If you think of it this way, I'm very pitiful. I've dedicated my days to Century Splendid and my nights to charm. I don't even have time for myself anymore. Yisiki couldn't keep a straight face anymore. She couldn't help but laugh. Alright, now that you've said it, it seems quite reasonable. But didn't you want me to express my respect for you? Why are you suddenly acting pitiful? Once you understand how pitiful I am, you'll admire me even more. He wasn't lying. To be able to manage 2 companies so well, he was indeed a very capable person. Although Yisiki didn't say anything, she was full of admiration for him in her heart. After calming down, Yisiki began to think about a more realistic problem. You let me work at your hotel. This is considered getting in through the back door, right? Will it cause you any trouble? Xiao Tianqing stared into her eyes with a serious expression. This is indeed getting in through the back door, but the one who will be troubled won't be me, but you. If news of this gets out, you'll be questioned by everyone. You have to prove yourself with your own ability and make them Gigai shut up. Tell me, can you do it? Her eyes were firm. I won't let you down. He smiled. Very good. This is the Yisiki I know. After leaving the cafe and driving home, Yisiki began to worry. Would Shihao agree to let her start working again? Should she tell him that this job was offered to her by Xiao Tianqing? She thought about it for a long time and decided to tell him the truth. During dinner, Yisiki mentioned that she wanted to leave the house and start working again. Unexpectedly, she received Lin Shihao's support. He smiled and said, Honey, I support you to have your own career, but don't work too hard. Actually, even if she didn't mention it, he was also thinking about this problem. As Nyonyo got older, Siki had more free time. If she had nothing to do, she would feel bored and might even be annoyed. It was a good thing for her to pick up her hobbies again. Isiki smiled happily. Thank you, hubby. Nyonya, do you support mommy going out to work? Nyonya blinked her big black eyes and said obediently, I support it too. As long as mommy is happy. Isiki was very touched. She hugged her and kissed her hard on the cheek. When they went to bed that night, Isiki leaned in Lin Shihao's arms. She raised her head and said carefully, hubby, actually I've already found a job. I'm working as an assistant nutritionist at Century Splendid Embroidery. That's good. But when did you hide the interview from me? He ruffled her hair. Actually, I haven't interviewed yet. Isiki bit her lip and mustered up her courage to say, it was Xiao Tianxing who introduced me to this hotel. He's the owner of this hotel. Lin Shihao's expression suddenly changed. He stared at her with his deep eyes, which were surging with something that made her afraid. His voice was deep and cold. You agreed to his request. Isiki stroked his chest to help him calm down. She said gently, don't be angry. Before I agreed to his request, he didn't tell me that this hotel was his. He said that this hotel belonged to his friend. He introduced me to the job and told me about the job. I liked it very much. He even said that there would be a senior nutritionist to take care of me. That's why I agreed. His eyes narrowed dangerously and his voice became even colder. You still agreed to accept the job after knowing that he was the boss. Isiki leaned her head against his chest and said softly, I accepted the job because I really like it. Ever since Nyonya was born, I gave up the job that I originally liked, but I didn't give up my hobby. I studied recipes at home. Home is where I show my results. Occasionally, I have bold ideas. I want to go to a wider place and show what I've learned. Hubby, if you really don't want me to work at his hotel, then I'll find an excuse to decline. Don't be angry anymore, okay? Lin Shihao's heart ached and he hugged her even tighter. He always remembered her dream. She said that she wanted to become a senior nutritionist. He clearly remembered how emotional she was when she said that. After Nyonya was born, she took the initiative to quit her job in order to take care of the child and be his good wife. She was willing to be a housewife. She had already given up a lot for this family. How could he stop her from embarking on the journey to realize her dream because of his selfishness? Attention, Hongcha 866. Chapter 4:15. Lin Shihao narrowed his eyes and said slowly, I agree to let you work at his company, but you have to promise me that if you find out that he has feelings for you other than as a normal friend or superior, you have to resign. Okay, I promise you. Isiki hugged his neck excitedly and kissed him on the cheek. Hubby, I'm so happy. Thank you. I really don't know what to do with you. Lin Shihao ruffled her hair helplessly. Hubby, you're the best. Isiki could tell that a certain someone was still feeling a little uncomfortable. She used her long-lost peerless coquettish technique and hugged him, rubbing and kissing him. She didn't even realize that the evil fire in his heart was coming out. Lin Shihao's body part was slowly changing. He purposely rubbed her waist with that part and chuckled softly. Wifey, you're the one who started this. You have to be responsible for appeasing the fire. Isiki blushed. She rarely took the initiative in this aspect, but seeing that he was willing to let go of his grudge and agree to let her work at Xiao Tianxing's company, she had to reward him. She hooked her arms around his neck and raised her head to kiss his lips. He enjoyed her initiative and let her take the initiative. He opened his mouth cooperatively and kissed her passionately. With nimble movements of his fingers, their bathrobes were unknowingly pulled apart. Their skin touched, bringing a wave of numbness, and at the same time, it caused their souls to throb. Lin Shihao's fingertips slowly slid down. His breathing became heavy and difficult to control. He followed her beautiful neck to her collarbone and left a faint bite mark. He whispered in a hoarse voice, "You're mine." He wanted to leave his mark on her body and make the man who coveted her go away. Isiki's body was on fire from his teasing. Her body's reaction was completely instinctive. She wanted to be filled with something. Lin Shihao's kiss went lower and lower, until his mark landed on her abdomen. Her entire body tensed up, and she was about to cry out. She helplessly called out to him, "Hubby." "It's so hot." Under the dim light, her eyes were misty and her cheeks were red. She bit her red and swollen lips and moaned softly. She was so beautiful that he almost couldn't take his eyes off her. He held her slender waist with both hands and looked at her delicate face with his dark eyes. He laughed deeply and said in a hoarse voice, "Wifey, don't worry. I'll satisfy you soon." His flirtatious words made her blush even more. Biting her lips tightly, he followed her silent invitation and slowly lowered his waist into her. After that, she begged for mercy countless times. Even when she was completely exhausted, he still set off fierce waves of heat on her body. After a long time, he carried her into the bathroom and cleaned her up. He held her in his arms and watched her fall into a deep sleep. She murmured in her sleep, "Hubby, don't do it anymore. I'm so tired." He kissed her forehead gently. "Wifey, I love you." When Isiki woke up the next day, it was already past 8 o'clock. She sat up in bed in shock and touched the blanket beside her. It was already cold. There was a post-it note on the bedside table. "Wifey, breakfast is in the kitchen. If it's cold, heat it up in the microwave. I'll send Nyo-Nyo to school today. Rest well at home. Love, your husband." She held the note tightly and her heart was filled with warmth. She set the alarm every day because she was worried that she would oversleep. She didn't expect that she would oversleep. She didn't know that Lin Shihao had deliberately turned off the alarm so that she could have a good sleep. Breakfast was her favorite omelette and Nyo-Nyo's favorite sandwich. After heating it in the microwave for a while, the kitchen immediately emitted a strong aroma. Although the room was empty, it was filled with his love for her. She thought that it would be great if they could continue like this. But reality was always cruel. She didn't even dare to look at it directly. 2 days later, Isiki officially reported to Century Brocade. She put on a suit that she hadn't worn in a long time and stood awkwardly in front of Lin Shihao. "Hubby, do I look a little strange?" Lin Shihao smiled and comforted her. "How is it strange?" "I think it's very good." "Wifey, don't be nervous. Do the job you like. You can definitely do it." Nyo-Nyo also encouraged her. "Mommy, you can do it. You're the best." She smiled brightly. "Okay, Mommy will definitely not let you and Daddy down." The father and daughter cheered her on together, and her uneasy mood calmed down a lot. The family of 3 went out together. Because it was on the way, Isiki sent Nyo-Nyo to school. Before the little fellow got out of the car, she hugged her and kissed her on the cheek. She said sweetly, "Mommy, you're the best. You'll definitely succeed. My Nyo-Nyo is so considerate. Mommy is so touched." Isiki smiled and hugged her. "Nyo-Nyo, be a good gigai at school. Mommy will pick you up tonight." "Okay, bye, Mommy." The little fellow jumped out of the car and waved at her with a smile. "Bye." Isiki watched her daughter run into the school gate before driving away. Xiao Tianxing had already informed the HR department, so when Isiki took his business card and reported to the manager of the HR department, she didn't encounter any obstacles. The manager was very polite to her and personally helped her with the entry procedures. Then, he took her upstairs to see Xiao Tianxing. Xiao Tianxing's office was on the top floor of Century Brocade. Yi Siki followed the manager of the HR department to take the staff elevator to the top floor. After the secretary informed them on the internal line, she invited them in. Instead of calling it an office, it was more like a presidential suite. It was even more luxurious than a presidential suite. The huge room was at least 200 square meters. Not only did it have an office area, a leisure area, and a sports area. The owner of the office, Xiao Tianxing, was wearing a bathrobe and walking out of the bathroom. He was wiping his wet hair with a towel in his hand. Chen Yu, the manager of the HR department, seemed to be used to his disheveled appearance. Her face didn't turn red and her heart didn't beat fast. Her tone was very calm. President, Miss Ye's entry procedures have been completed. Even though he was wearing a bathrobe, his words and actions were incomparably elegant. He faintly said, "Manager Chin, if there's nothing else, you can go back to work." "Okay." Chen Yu nodded politely. After leaving the office, she closed the door behind her. Only the two of them were left in the office. Yi Siki felt an invisible pressure. She looked down and stood straight, reminding herself to ignore the fact that he was wearing a bathrobe. "Why are you still standing?" Xiao Tianxing smiled and glanced at Yi Siki. "Take a seat first. I'll go change." Yi Siki secretly sighed in relief and took the opportunity to sit on a fabric sofa. A few minutes later, Xiao Tianxing walked out elegantly in white trousers and a light-colored V-neck woolen sweater. His simple style perfectly outlined his handsomeness and straightforwardness. He walked to the leisure area and poured 2 cups of fragrant handmade coffee. He handed 1 cup to Yi Siki and kept the other for himself. He leaned comfortably on the sofa and crossed his legs. There was a playful smile on his handsome face. "Your husband actually let you come to work for me?" Yi Siki held the warm coffee cup with both hands. She raised her eyebrows and smiled. "Don't underestimate my husband. He's very open-minded." Xiao Tianxing sneered. "I could tell when we were at the hospital that he was very possessive. I'm afraid he only agreed to let you work at my company because of the guilt in his heart." Yi Siki pursed her lips and smiled. Actually, she knew that Lin Shihao felt guilty about her giving up her job to take care of her husband and children. However, she didn't want him to feel that way. She didn't want to create a sense of imbalance between them because of this. Xiao Tianxing took a sip of coffee, put the coffee cup on the coffee table, and tapped the back of the sofa with his fingers. "Later, the personnel department will introduce you to your position. Uncle Yu will be your direct superior. He's the top senior nutritionist in the country. His personality is a bit strange, and he's very strict with his subordinates. You have to be mentally prepared. If he doesn't approve of you, even I can't persuade him. If you want to back out, it's not too late." The corners of his lips curled up and his eyes flashed with a sly light. "I still lack an assistant." Yi Siki's heart trembled slightly. She understood that the top people in the industry usually had a strange temper. However, this didn't make her want to back out. Instead, it aroused her strong initiative. She smiled slightly. "There's no need for an assistant. I think I'm more suitable for the position of an assistant nutritionist." "Good." Xiao Tianxing clapped his hands, his eyes full of praise. "Yi Siki, welcome to Century Brocade." "Thank you." Yi Siki said thank you very sincerely. She was very grateful for everything he had done. Uncle Yu's full name was Yu Zhenlin. He was already 58 years old this year. Among the employees, he was the oldest, so everyone respectfully called him Uncle Yu. His hair was half white, his face was square, he didn't smile, and he was very strict. When they first came into contact with him, they felt that he was very difficult to get along with. After a long time, they realized that he was actually very kind. In his eyes, there was no concept of superiors and subordinates. There was only right and wrong. Therefore, even if Xiao Tianqing made an unreasonable decision, he would still raise his doubts. He was such an old man who made people respect him. Powerful novel, Hongcha 866. Chapter 4:16. When Qin Yu brought Yi Siki to the kitchen to report in, Uncle Yu was instructing the kitchen handyman, Xiao Wang, on how to prepare the fish. After hearing Qin Yu's introduction, he looked up at Yi Siki. Yi Siki bowed unhurriedly. Uncle Yu, I am the new assistant nutritionist, Yi Siki. Please take good care of me. Uncle Yu sized her up. He reached out and pressed down on Xiao Wang's kitchen knife. He said calmly, "You handle this carp." This sentence was directed at Yi Siki. Yi Siki smiled graciously. Okay. She had done plenty of fish handling. Although it looked simple, there was a lot of skill involved. Uncle Yu must be using this opportunity to test her. Yi Siki rolled up her sleeves, put on gloves, and took the kitchen knife from Xiao Wang. The fish had been knocked unconscious by Xiao Wang and was lying motionless on the chopping board. She skillfully removed the scales and gills. Then she used the knife to make a horizontal cut about an inch from the back of the gills to the back of the fish's gills. She then used the knife to make a horizontal cut about an inch from the back of the fish's gills to the back of the fish's gills. She used her fingers to pull out the fish's tendons. Then she used the same method to pull out the tendons on the other side. After she pulled out the tendons, she cut open the fish's stomach and dug out the internal organs. Then she cleaned the fish's stomach and body. After she was done neatly, she placed the cleaned carp back on the chopping board and smiled. Uncle Yu, I'm done. Uncle Yu stared at her for a few seconds with his deep eyes. He then glanced at the clean carp and said calmly, "Why did you pull out the tendons?" Yi Siki smiled. After you handle it like this, the fish won't smell fishy after it's cooked. Uncle Yu looked at her expressionlessly. Then he turned to look at Xiao Wang who was standing beside him. Got it? Xiao Wang nodded repeatedly. Got it. Come with me. Uncle Yu glanced at Yi Siki. He did not wait for her to reply and walked straight ahead. Yi Siki nodded politely at Qin Yu and quickly followed Uncle Yu. A faint smile appeared on Qin Yu's lips as she watched them leave one after another. Xiao Wang came up to her curiously and asked, "Sister Qin, does that newcomer Yi Siki have some sort of background? Otherwise, why would Uncle Yu take her in?" Qin Yu raised her hand and knocked him on the head. "Just mind your own business. Don't ask anything you shouldn't ask." Little Wang scratched his head and smiled sheepishly. I understand. After Qin Yu returned to the office, the first thing she did was to call the internal line to report on Yi Siki's situation. "President, Uncle Yu has begun to assess Miss Yi. From what I can see, he is quite satisfied with Miss Yi's performance." Xiao Tianqing chuckled. He was right about Yi Siki. She was indeed a capable person. Although he wanted to help her, he did not care if she was not capable enough to do the job. Century Brocade's kitchen was very large and was divided into different operating areas. There was a cutting room, a pooling area, a cooking area, a steaming area, a catering area, a dish delivery area, and so on. Here, the division of labor was clear. Everyone stuck to their job and did their best to do their job. After Uncle Yu showed Yi Siki around the kitchen, he brought her to the cooking area. It was not dinner time yet, so everyone was preparing. The cooking area was relatively quiet. He looked at her and said, "Tell me, what does a nutritionist do?" Yi Siki thought for a moment and said, "A qualified nutritionist is a combination of a nutritionist, a doctor, and a chef. Their main job is to study the relationship between the nutrients in food and the needs of the human body. In other words, they guide people on what to eat, how to eat, and how much to eat. After hearing her answer, Uncle Yu did not show any special expression. He said slowly, "I want you to make 2 dishes within an hour. One will nourish the lungs, and the other will help you lose weight and detoxify." "Okay, no problem," Yisiki agreed readily. She was not in a hurry to start. Instead, she thought for a moment. After deciding what to make, she prepared the ingredients in the vegetable and meat processing rooms. It only took her half an hour to make the 2 dishes. She brought them to the dining area for Uncle Yu to taste. Uncle Yu opened the first small bowl. It was bamboo shoot and white fungus soup. It had the effect of losing weight and detoxifying, and it looked pretty good. He tasted it with a spoon and did not say anything. He looked at the second pot. Yisiki quickly opened the pot, ladled out half a bowl, and presented it to him with both hands. As he tasted it, Yisiki smiled and introduced, "The second dish is pumpkin stewed with beef. Not only can it prevent colds, but it also has the effect of moisturizing the lungs, relieving coughing and asthma, and moisturizing and nourishing the skin." Uncle Yu put down the bowl and looked up at the woman standing obediently beside him. He smiled for the first time that day. "You controlled the heat well, used the right amount of seasoning, and handled the ingredients well. You passed." Yisiki's heart, which had been in her throat, finally calmed down. She clenched her fist and swung it down. She exclaimed excitedly, "That's great, Uncle Yu. Thank you." Uncle Yu had already restrained his smile and said with a straight face, "Don't be happy too early. You still have a lot of room for improvement." Yisiki nodded profusely. "I know. I will continue to work hard." Uncle Yu nodded calmly and stood up from his chair. "Your task today is to supervise the workers in washing and cutting vegetables. How long should the vegetables be soaked so that the nitrite content does not increase? How should the meat be cut to make it easier to cook? You should know all these things, right?" "Yes." Yisiki was full of confidence. Uncle Yu lifted his chin. "Okay, get to work." Yisiki quickly familiarized herself with the work environment. Her theoretical knowledge and practical experience enabled her to handle the task with ease. Coupled with Uncle Yu's guidance, her passion for nutrition grew. She felt as if she had returned to her university days, full of passion, full of energy, and wholeheartedly wanting to make a career out of herself. This kind of passion and satisfaction even made her temporarily forget about the crisis in her family. However, forgetting did not mean that it did not exist. On Saturday, Lin Shihao said that he had to attend a seminar and would not be home for lunch. He would only be home in the evening. Before he left, he hugged her and kissed her cheek. She did not know if it was her imagination or if she was just suspicious, but she felt that there was something wrong with his expression. Yisiki hesitated for a long time, but in the end, she still dialed the card number in the tracker. Soon, the tracker transmitted his location to her phone. The Starlight Revolving Restaurant, located on the highest floor of City A, was magnificently decorated and extraordinary. Through the spacious and bright floor-to-ceiling glass windows, there was a panoramic view of the tall buildings, the beautiful beach, and the Zongjing Avenue. There were more than 100 kinds of exquisite Chinese and Western dishes on the dining car surrounded by flowers. In the middle of the restaurant, a jazz band was playing a graceful and affectionate nostalgic song. Yisiki and Xiao Tianqing walked into the restaurant and immediately saw Lin Shihao and Bai Meiwei sitting by the glass window. At this moment, Bai Meiwei was wearing a red wool dress. Her hair was tied up on top of her head, revealing her fair neck. Her pearl earrings made her face look even more radiant. She had a shy and happy smile on her face, and her red lips were moving slightly as if she was saying something. Lin Shihao's back was facing the entrance, so she could not see his expression clearly. However, just looking at Bai Meiwei's expression at this moment, Yi Siqi's heart was filled with jealousy. She wanted to immediately rush up and make a scene, but her rationality suppressed this thought in the end. Xiao Tianqing calmly held her hand and said in a low voice, "Don't be rash." She bit her lip and tried to pull her hand out of his grasp, but he held it even tighter. "Don't move. Be careful not to be discovered by them." He pulled her to a table far away from Lin Shihao and sat down. She said unhappily, "Why are we sitting here? I can barely see what they're doing." Xiao Tianqing calmly glared at her. "Are you stupid? If we're sitting so close to them, it'll be easy for them to realize that we're following them on purpose." Yi Siqi said dejectedly, "You're smart. Tell me, what should we do now?" Xiao Tianqing's gaze swept around and finally landed on the band in the middle of the restaurant. The corners of his lips curled up, and he raised his eyebrows proudly. "I have an idea." Yi Siqi was about to ask him what the idea was when she suddenly heard her phone ring. It was a text message. She opened it and saw that it was another photo sent by Bai Meiwei. In the photo, Lin Shihao was sitting alone at the table, his head tilted to the side as he admired the scenery outside the glass window. Xiao Tianqing leaned over to take a look. He rubbed his chin and analyzed. This could be a photo that Bai Meiwei secretly took when she used the excuse of going to the restroom. "Look, the angle of the photo is that way. That's the direction that leads to the restroom." Yi Siqi snorted angrily. Xiao Tianqing grinned. "Don't be angry. Her motive for sending this photo was to make you angry. If you get angry, won't you be letting her off easy?" "That's true. I won't be angry. I won't be angry." Yi Siqi tried to convince herself again and again. Lin Shihao and Bai Meiwei had already finished eating. He lifted his wrist and looked at his watch. There was a subtle hint of impatience between his brows as he said calmly, "Don't you still want to go shopping? Let's go." Bai Meiwei grabbed his arm and dragged him to sit down again. "Senior, we have one day. Don't be anxious. The scenery here is so beautiful. Let's sit here for a while longer." Lin Shihao frowned. "I have to go home before 5 o'clock. He still wanted to go home and have dinner with his wife and child. Bai Meiwei pouted. "This is our second date. Can't you accompany me for a while longer?" Lin Shihao pursed his thin lips and his eyes darkened. Just as he was about to say something, the lead singer of the band said through the microphone, "Dear distinguished guests, we are very sorry to interrupt your meal. A guest would like to dedicate a song to his friend. Mr. Xiao, please come on stage." Welfare, Song Shu 566. Chapter 417. Xiao Tianqing, this name suddenly entered Lin Shihao's ears. He suddenly turned his head and looked towards the center of the restaurant, only to see a man in a suit elegantly walking towards the band. With a warm smile on his handsome face, Xiao Tianqing took the microphone from the lead singer. His eyes gazed affectionately in a certain direction, and he slowly said, "This song, I want to give to my friend, this one. I promise you, this is my promise to you, I will give you strength, I will give you hope, Siqi." Lin Shihao's eyes suddenly tightened. He couldn't believe his eyes as he followed Xiao Tianqing's gaze to the corner of the dining room. He saw his wife. She was wearing a bohemian-style knitted dress. Her beautiful short hair was tucked behind her ears. Her eyes were smiling as she looked at Xiao Tianqing. This "I Promise You" was a classic foreign love song. Xiao Tianqing sat on a high chair with a guitar in his arms. The beautiful melody flowed slowly from his slender fingertips. His magnetic and gentle voice affectionately expressed his deep love. He gazed at Yi Siki from afar, as if she was the only one in the world. Lin Shihao clenched his fists tightly. His sharp gaze locked onto Xiao Tianxing and Yi Siki. The jealousy in his heart burned like a volcano that was about to erupt. Bai Meiwei also saw Yi Siki. Her eyes flashed with jealousy and hatred. She chuckled and said, "Senior, is that sister-in-law? I know that man. He's the owner of Charm Bar. When did they become so close? They're also dating, right?" Lin Shihao's expression turned even uglier. His nails dug into his palms. His eyes were fierce. He wanted nothing more than to pounce on Xiao Tianxing and tear him apart. Bai Meiwei's smile widened as she sensed the hostility emanating from his body. Her voice also became softer as she said, "I thought sister-in-law loved you very much. Now it seems that she and Xiao Tiancheng are already in love with each other." Her words were like a match that ignited the bomb in Lin Shihao's heart. With a bang, the bomb exploded and blew up all of his rationality. The song ended. The lingering sound lingered in the air. Everyone was immersed in the affectionate and beautiful song, unable to extricate themselves for a long time. Yi Siki couldn't help but stand up and applaud Xiao Tianxing. The lonely applause quickly led the others to applaud. For a moment, the applause was like thunder. The lead singer of the band joked, "Mr. Xiao, your singing is excellent. It's China's music industry's loss that you're not a singer." Xiao Tianxing smiled. "Sorry. Actually, I rarely sing. I hope that my friend will like it." The lead singer looked at Yi Siki and said loudly, "Miss Siki, do you like Mr. Xiao's gift?" His action attracted everyone's attention to Yi Siki. Some people smiled kindly, while others looked at her curiously. She blushed slightly and brushed her hair behind her ear embarrassedly. She pursed her lips and smiled. "I like it." As soon as the word, "I like it," came out of her mouth, a tall figure rushed to her side like lightning. He grabbed her wrist and dragged her out recklessly. "Hubby." Yi Siki's eyes widened. She looked up at the man who was dragging her. Lin Shihao's handsome face was covered with dark clouds. His dark eyes were surging with anger, ready to burst out at any time. He was very strong. His grip on her wrist hurt. She couldn't help but cry out, "It hurts." "Hubby, what are you doing? Come with me." His thin lips were pursed tightly. His sharp gaze was like a sharp knife stabbing at her. His voice was bone-chilling, but his grip on her wrist loosened subconsciously. Slow down." Yi Siki staggered a few steps and almost fell down from his dragging. Xiao Tianxing stuffed the guitar into the lead singer's arms and rushed over. He scolded coldly, "Lin Shihao, let go of her. This is between us husband and wife. You don't have to interfere." Lin Shihao said, then dragged Yi Siki away. Xiao Tianxing didn't chase after them this time. Instead, he crossed his arms and a sly smile appeared in his eyes. The customers in the restaurant were shocked by this scene. They used their rich imaginations to speculate about the ins and outs of the situation. Some people even whispered to each other and exchanged gossipy opinions. Bai Meiwei looked at the empty seat opposite her and trembled with anger. She didn't expect Lin Shihao to rush over without a care for anything and throw away his dignity in front of so many people. She took a sip of her drink and tried to suppress the anger in her heart. She picked up her purse and was about to follow them. The waiter walked over and said politely, "Madam, you haven't paid the bill yet." Bai Meiwei's face darkened. She quickly took out her wallet and pulled out a card. By the time she paid the bill, Lin Shihao and Yi Siki had already disappeared. She grabbed her purse and quickly walked out of the restaurant. She didn't expect to bump into Xiao Tianxing in the corridor. Xiao Tianxing stood in front of her with his hands in his trouser pockets. His gaze fell on her lightly. She nodded politely and took a step to the left, intending to walk past him. He also took a step to the left and blocked her path. She took a step to the right and he followed suit. Bai Meiwei simply stopped in her tracks. She stared at his face with her beautiful eyes and said calmly, "Mr. Xiao, is there anything I can help you with?" Xiao Tianqing sneered. "Nothing." Her expression changed. She tried her best to remain calm. "If there's nothing, please move aside." His lips curled into a mocking smile. He said calmly, "That's strange. You go your way and I go mine. How am I in your way?" She frowned and tightened her grip on her purse. Her voice was slightly cold. "Very well. Since we each have our own objectives, then we have nothing to do with each other." She took another step forward. This time, he stood still and she easily brushed past him. However, when she took the elevator downstairs, Lin Shihao was nowhere to be seen. He had already dragged Isiki somewhere. Bai Meiwei was so angry that she stomped her feet and almost broke her silver teeth. A car sped along the road. Isiki gripped her seatbelt tightly and said uneasily, "Hubby, slow down." Lin Shihao's face was terrifyingly gloomy. He looked straight ahead and gripped the steering wheel so tightly that his knuckles turned white. He said coldly, "Why are you and Xiao Tianqing here?" Isiki pouted pitifully. "Chairman Xiao said he would treat me to a meal to celebrate my joining the company." In order to appease his anger, she addressed Xiao Tianqing as Chairman Xiao. Sure enough, Lin Shihao's expression eased a little. "He sang for you. What's up with that?" Isiki laughed dryly. "Well, we actually made a bet. Whoever lost the bet had to go on stage and sing a song. He lost, so he had no choice but to accept his loss." Lin Shihao looked at her suspiciously. "A bet? What kind of bet?" "Actually, it's related to my field of expertise." He ordered a soup with many ingredients in it. He said that if I could guess all the ingredients in it just by drinking a mouthful of the soup, I would win. If I couldn't, he would win. In the end, I won. Isiki's tone was light, as if she didn't understand what he was angry about. "Is that really it?" Lin Shihao looked at her suspiciously, still in disbelief. "Of course it's that." Isiki sighed helplessly. "There's really nothing between us. Why didn't you tell me in advance that he would treat you to a meal? Also, if it's just an employee-boss relationship, why would he treat you to a meal at such a high-end restaurant?" Lin Shihao was like a seasoned detective who didn't give up on any clues. Isiki didn't know whether to laugh or cry. "He decided to treat me to a meal at the last minute. I didn't have time to tell you before you left." She suddenly thought of something and stared at him with burning eyes. Her tone became serious. "Hubby, weren't you at the conference? Why were you at the revolving restaurant?" Lin Shihao's heart sank. D***, he had rushed in front of her in a fit of anger and had forgotten about it. At that moment, the tables had turned. Lin Shihao was originally in an advantageous position, but now he was suddenly in a disadvantageous position. He gripped the steering wheel tightly, and a chill ran down his spine. His thin lips moved, and he was about to blurt out the truth when a melodious ringtone sounded. He swallowed the words that were about to come out of his mouth. He pressed the answer button, and a gentle female voice came from the other end of the line. "Shihao, come back tomorrow with Nyonyo. Mom hasn't seen you in a long time, and I miss you." "Okay, got it." Lin Shihao chatted with his mother, Jiang Rulan, for a while before ending the call. There was silence in the car. The conversation just now was interrupted by a phone call, and the courage that Lin Shihao had worked so hard to muster was also worn away. He gritted his teeth and said slowly, "The conference is over." I went to the restaurant to eat with a colleague. Yisiki's eyes hid a hint of sadness, and she felt a little upset. If she hadn't seen him sitting with Bai Meiwei with her own eyes, she would have really believed his words. However, she had also lied to him, so how could she blame him for lying to her? Xiao Tianxing was right. Her enemy wasn't Lin Shihao but Bai Meiwei. At least, her plan with Xiao Tianxing had succeeded. They had ruined Bai Meiwei's date, and that woman must be hopping mad. Imagining her flustered and exasperated look, Yisiki's mood improved a little. She grinned silently and said, "Let's go home. Nyo is home alone." He slowly spat out a word. Okay. Jiang Rulan was Lin Shihao's mother. She was a very powerful woman. Lin Shihao's father passed away when he was in high school. She took out all her savings and opened a small restaurant to support her son's education. More than 10 years later, the small restaurant had become a big restaurant, and she had become a famous local career woman. When Yisiki and Lin Shihao got married, she was very happy and had always wanted to train Yisiki to be the successor of the restaurant. Unfortunately, Yisiki wanted to be a good wife and raise children, so she gave up on that idea and planned to pass the restaurant to her grandson. In the end, after Yisiki gave birth to a daughter, she never got pregnant again. The grandson that she had been looking forward to for many years was nowhere in sight. Her attitude towards Yisiki also turned cold. Come and see. Songshu 566. Chapter 418. Jiang Rulan lived on the other side of the city. Lin Shihao and Yisiki would bring their children home to visit her every month. Every time they came home, Yisiki would buy her many gifts, help her with the housework, and make her happy. However, she never treated Yisiki well. Jiang Rulan lived alone in a high-end residential area. She hired a nanny at home. Every time her son and daughter-in-law came home, she gave the nanny a day off. Firstly, there would be no outsiders present, and it would be easier for her family members to talk. Secondly, she wanted to deliberately make things difficult for Yisiki. She left all the chores of buying groceries, cooking, and washing the dishes to her. Outside the door, Lin Shihao held the gifts Yisiki bought for his mother with both hands. Yisiki was holding vegetables and fruits in her hands. Nyo obediently rang the doorbell. Shihao, Nyo, you're here. Come in quickly. Jiang Rulan wore a red turtleneck sweater and a plain shawl. She had light makeup on her face. Although she was already in her 50s, thanks to the years of maintenance, she looked younger. Her every movement exuded an air of nobility. She welcomed her son and granddaughter into the house with a smile, as if Yisiki didn't exist. Lin Shihao knew that his mother had a problem with Siki, so whenever he had the chance, he would praise Siki in front of her. He smiled and said, "Mom, Siki took a fancy to a dress a few days ago. She thinks it suits you, so she specially bought it for you. Do you want to try it on?" Jiang Rulan glanced at Yisiki, who was holding vegetables and fruits, and said indifferently, "Why did she buy those messy things again? It's not like I don't have money. If I need anything, I can buy it myself." Yisiki maintained the smile on her face and said gently, "Mom, the design of that dress is elegant and generous. It can highlight your temperament. When I was shopping, I took a fancy to it at first sight. I felt that only you could wear that kind of feeling. Mom, Siki means well. Just try it on and let us admire it." Lin Shihao handed one of the bags to Jiang Rulan. "Grandma, just give it a try. I want to see it too." Nyo threw herself into her arms and hugged her coquettishly. Her beautiful big eyes blinked, full of anticipation. Although Jiang Rulan hoped that Yisiki would give birth to a boy, it didn't mean that she didn't like Nyo. On the contrary, she liked smart and sensible Nyo. She couldn't bear to reject the child's innocent eyes. Since you and your father and daughter say so, I'll give it a try. She carried the clothes into the bedroom. Lin Shihao turned his head and looked at Yisiki apologetically. Yisiki smiled at him silently and walked into the kitchen with the things in her hands. Yisiki had only bought clothes for her twice. The first time was when Nyo was 3 years old. Jiang Rulan's attitude towards Yisiki had already turned cold. She had accused Yisiki of having no taste and that the clothes she bought were like goods from a street stall. The second time was this time. Jiang Rulan took out the dress from the bag. The price tag was still there. It was a 5-digit price tag. It was Chanel's new autumn/winter collection. Even she couldn't bear to buy too many of such expensive clothes. She only bought 2 or 3 pieces to keep up appearances. She felt conflicted. After changing, she stood in front of the full-length mirror. She looked at the woman in the mirror. She was elegant and generous. Just as Yisiki said, it suited her. She wasn't the only one who thought it was good. Lin Shihao and Nyo also praised it in unison. Yisiki smiled faintly. Mom, it's very beautiful. It really suits you. Jiang Rulan snorted coldly. You didn't even use Shihao's money to buy such expensive clothes. You didn't earn a single cent, yet you still spent so extravagantly. Even if you don't feel distressed, I do. Yisiki clenched her fists. Her expression changed. She forced a smile. Lin Shihao's expression turned ugly. Mom, Siki, and I are husband and wife. What do you mean by mine and hers? We are one. We shouldn't be separated. Besides, Siki doesn't spend money recklessly. She is very thrifty with her clothes and necessities. She puts all her attention on me and Nyo. She has never been stingy with you. Please don't say such heart-wrenching words again. He had never said such harsh words. Even when his mother made things difficult for Siki in front of him, he had never reprimanded her. Instead, he persuaded his mother behind her back. But this time, he couldn't stand it anymore. He didn't want his beloved wife to be made difficult by his mother, whom he respected. Jiang Rulan didn't expect her son to challenge her authority. She was so angry that her face turned pale. Her lips trembled as she said angrily, "It's true that once you marry a wife, you forget your mother. How did I raise such an unfilial son? Mom, can't you be more reasonable?" The veins on Lin Shihao's forehead were throbbing. He was so agitated that it seemed like he was going to explode with all the grievances that had accumulated over the years. Yisiki quickly grabbed his arm and said in a low voice, "Hubby, calm down. Don't say any more." Lin Shihao pressed the back of her hand. "No, since I've already spoken, let me finish. Mom, think about it. Isn't Siki good to you? When she heard that you wanted to eat something, she went to several markets to buy ingredients to make it for you. Then, she delivered it to your door. When you were hospitalized for appendicitis, she stayed at the hospital every day to take care of you. When your stomach wasn't well, she studied it at home for more than a month. She wrote a diet recipe for the nanny and asked the nanny to cook according to the recipe. She did so many things for you. Why can't you see the good in her?" Jiang Rulan's face alternated between red and white. She stared straight at Lin Shihao and said angrily, "In my eyes, no matter how good she is, nothing is more important than a grandson." She snorted angrily and left the livid Lin Shihao, the pale Yisiki, and Nyo, who was about to cry, to return to her room. She locked herself in her room and didn't answer anyone who knocked on the door. Lin Shihao's family of 3 stood in the empty living room. They were all in a bad mood. Yisiki forced a smile. "Hubby, let Mom be alone for a while." I'm going to prepare lunch. Lin Shihao's expression eased a little. Let me help you. No need. You can accompany Nyonyo. Isiki bent down and stroked Nyonyo's hair. She said gently, Nyonyo, play with Daddy in the living room for a while. Mommy is going to the kitchen to cook. Okay. Nyonyo nodded obediently. Isiki walked into the kitchen and closed the door. The tears that she had been holding back slowly flowed out of her eyes. Lin Shihao sat on the sofa with his daughter in his arms and watched TV. His gaze lingered in the kitchen, and there was a hint of heartache in his deep eyes. Nyonyo nestled in his arms and said in a muffled voice, Daddy, does Grandma not like me anymore? Lin Shihao was slightly stunned. He lowered his head and looked at his daughter in his arms. She buried her little head in his chest and clutched his clothes tightly. She seemed very nervous and scared. His heart ached. He stroked her hair and said gently, How can that be? Grandma likes Nyonyo the most. But Grandma said that she wants a grandson. Nyonyo looked up at him and pouted. Grandma likes boys. It would be great if I were a boy. Lin Shihao was speechless. In the past, his mother still cared about the child and would not say such things in front of the child. What she said today not only hurt him and Siki, but also hurt Nyonyo. His heart ached. He held his daughter in his arms and said gently, Nyonyo, no matter if you are a boy or a girl, Grandma will love you all the same. Grandma was so angry with Daddy that she said those things. In the end, Daddy was wrong. Can you forgive Daddy? He took all the responsibility and diverted Nyonyo's attention. Sure enough, her negative emotions were reduced by a lot. She hugged his neck and kissed him on the cheek. Smiling sweetly, she said, I forgive Daddy. Nyonyo is so obedient. Lin Shihao smiled and stroked her hair. Lunch was ready. Lin Shihao knocked on the door of the master bedroom. Mom, it's time to eat. These are all your favorite dishes. For a while, no one answered. Lin Shihao knocked again and raised his voice slightly. Mom, it's time to eat. Jiang Rulan's angry voice came. I'm not eating. I'm full from anger. What's there to eat? Lin Shihao stood at the door for a while. He clenched his fingers and turned back to the dining room. Isiki came out of the kitchen with a bowl of soup. Nyonyo sat on her little chair with an uneasy expression on her face. Daddy, is Grandma still angry? Lin Shihao smiled. No, Grandma is tired and doesn't want to go out. Daddy will bring it in for Grandma. You and Mommy can eat first. Nyonyo said softly, Oh. Lin Shihao opened the door of the master bedroom with the spare key. Jiang Rulan was lying on the bed with her back facing the door. He put the food on the bedside table and sat on the edge of the bed. He whispered, Mom, Nyonyo just asked me if Grandma doesn't like me anymore. She also said that Grandma likes boys and that it would be great if I was a boy. Jiang Rulan's body stiffened. Actually, she regretted saying those words in front of Nyonyo. However, she wanted to save face. Even if it was her fault, she didn't want to admit it. Mom, you didn't see how uneasy she was. To be honest, I felt very uncomfortable looking at her. Nyonyo is a big child. She can understand those words. Lin Shihao's voice was a little hoarse. Jiang Rulan didn't say a word. She stiffly maintained her lying on her side. Lin Shihao said slowly, Mom, I know it's hard for you to manage the restaurant alone. It's our fault for not being able to help. Actually, there's a way to solve this problem. You just need to hire a professional manager to help you manage the restaurant. Then you can relax. Jiang Rulan turned around and stared at him with shining eyes. You think I haven't considered this problem? But the restaurant is our family's business. It needs to be inherited by our family. Lin Shihao pursed his thin lips and said in a low voice, Mom, Nyo can also inherit the restaurant. Look at her. She's so smart and sensible. How is she worse than a boy? Why do you have to be so biased towards boys? As a woman, didn't you manage the restaurant very well as well? Ad. Hongcha 866. You're tuning into the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.